welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Melby Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Joseph Pizarro, Samson, Maris, Mobile Mac 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I'll hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Pretty much applies to anybody who's in politics. If you go against the grain, you're out.
Well, I know that if you go against Israel, you won't even get in there. And the Congress people actually sign a pledge to support Israeli interests at every opportunity. And if they do not sign that pledge, then all the money gets pulled from their support and goes to their opponent in the next election.
So Israel's just a fake state. It was bought in 1948 by the Rothschilds.
And like 488 or something of your Congress people are actually dual citizens with Israel, which is
yeah, I know.
I think technically that's what is it, the high crime of treason? When you
treason,
yeah, you can't have an allegiance with another country, and
but they do.
Yeah, that's right.
And they do it right in the open. They don't care.
Yeah, Israel brag all the time, actually, about the stranglehold that they have over the Americans.
Yeah, but they really don't. It's just a show. They were created in 1948.
Pretty much everything that the US has done in the Middle East has been at the behest of the Israelis. None of it's been in the interest of the US.
These people ain't even Israeli. It's a fake state. They're Ashkenazi Jews that was brought in over there. They're not Israeli people. It's a fake state. It's not a country. There is no
I don't know who to believe with that.
Of course, because countries are a very real thing, aren't they? With those lines drawn around them on the maps.
Yeah.
Yeah, the British like drawing lines on maps.
Indeed.
The British were the best at that. For such a small little country, they conquered a lot, boy.
Just where to put those lines too.
Yeah, we were taught about it in school, in terms of how they'd move those lines to rig elections. It's even got a name. It's called gerrymandering.
Wait, what was that?
Gerrymandering. Look it up.
Yeah,
gerrymandering.
Yeah, they
Isn't that a UK thing?
No. They still do it in America.
How did I never hear of this?
They call it something different. They call it districts.
Who's talking? Is it Harp? You're a bit quiet. I don't know if you've just stepped away from your mic.
That's me, I think, Nathan. I'm quiet, I think.
Oh, it's skeptical. Skeptical? Hold on, just 1 second. I just want to... 1 second. Was it skeptical that was just talking? I just couldn't hear quite what you were saying. You were very quiet.
No, I think it was me, Nathan. Can you hear me now?
Steve. No, it's because I've got you turned down.
Yeah, morning.
1 second. 1 second. 1 second. Third time. Steve, please, can you just say a few more words?
Yeah, I disconnected your connection. How about now? Can you hear me?
If
No?
everyone else closed their mics and I didn't get people joining, I could have probably done something. But this is going to be the inevitable endless sound check, isn't it? Let's just try once more for the fourth time. Harp,
No,
please go on
sorry.
mute. Everybody other than Steve. I shouldn't have to dumb this down this far. Try once more, fifth time. Everybody other than Steve, please mute. Steve, can I just hear a few more words from you, please?
Yeah, I was just talking about gerrymandering. Can you hear me okay?
Can now.
No?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Yeah, we were just talking about gerrymandering, and it still happens in America. Yeah, they do it all the time. They're doing it right now, changing districts.
So that's what it's called, changing districts.
Right.
Never heard gerrymandering before. Can you hear me all right too then, Nathan?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
There you go.
Sorry to be...
How about me, boss? Can you hear me?
Don't call me boss. Bugger off anytime you like. You're not getting paid.
Yeah, morning. Can you hear me, guys? Hello.
Yes. Who was that?
Cool.
Hey, Skeptical.
Hey, Skeptical.
Yeah, morning, Ron. So,
No, I
First of all, that word boss don't mean boss. It just means like, that's a slang. Like, yes, boss.
Yeah.
All right, boss?
Yeah, we used to say that in Philly all the time. Boss.
I think
Yeah,
I
you
see
stole
it.
it from Brooklyn.
I still see it as the equivalent of
Probably.
saying "sir." Yes, sir.
Kind of. Well, not
wait,
really
I
though. It's
forgot.
just
I'm
slang.
supposed to say
We
yes,
call each
Nathan.
other boss.
It's a cheeky version, I guess, in a way, the way he's using it.
I got called sir the other day.
Sir?
Yeah.
Oh man, I was fishing
This is
last
a
week.
pun.
No,
This
I got
guy-
called sir the other day.
They're not.
It feels a
acknowledge your...
bit too formal, doesn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah, sir.
What's the relevance tenth? Were they refusing to acknowledge your transgender status or something?
I was confused myself.
I'm lost.
I had too many arms of Ganesh showing out of my shoulder, I think.
Arms of Ganesh. You're
Yeah,
thinking of Garo.
gerrymandering or something.
So, 10th, has any little kids walked by you and called you an old man yet?
My own son calls me that.
That's different.
Well, that's different though. So I was fishing a couple weeks back, and this little kid's walking down the road with his mom, and he's look, he's fishing, and he's walking by, and he says, "Yeah, but he's an old man." Oh, what the hell? Like, that's the
I'm
first
full of
time that
wisdom,
ever
don't
happened
worry.
to me, and it just changed my whole world right there. I was like, "Oh crap, I am an old man."
I had to explain to
It's
my
just-
daughter. It's really bizarre to explain to my daughter. She came back from a drama class and was singing "My Old Man Says Follow the Van," and I was like, "I'm your old man." I'm like, God, this is painful to say.
It's endearing. It just means you've lived life longer and should have, unless you're a baller, more wisdom.
I'm going to publish the section from yesterday's live show with Rumpus.
Wasn't much of a section.
Well,
Yeah, it wasn't much at all.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, why is it 17 minutes long then?
because when you don't let him talk, it's 17 minutes.
But when you do let him talk, it's 3 hours.
Yeah.
Well, all he did was restate his life for the third time in a row, and that's it. So, my title is something to the effect of "How to Deal with Globe Liars," something like that. I can't remember exactly what I titled it now, but nevertheless, I know Anthony, you were all for hearing him parrot off his lies more, let him dig the hole deeper. But as I said at the time, it goes against how I like to live my life.
No, I get it. I just wanted to feel like a condemned man that was being called a liar should at least be given the fair opportunity to defend the allegation against him. Because it is heinous to have a liar in amongst the heliocentric priests. I think that, whilst I understand your position, I think that it is only fair that Rumpus has the opportunity to explain his nonsense. If the result is only that we laugh at him for lying even further, he should have the opportunity to explain.
He has.
Exactly. I
He
was going to
has.
say.
He has. So on the first occasion was when I first called him out on the lie. He then came back on a second occasion. In fact, there was 4, because on the first occasion he was called out on the lie, and he wasn't actually fully called out on it, because his first initial gambit was to say, I can go back and show you where I refracted everything. So the initial gambit was to say, come back with that show. Now, that was supposed to be on a Monday after a Friday show. Wednesday rolled around, and that was when I called him a liar for the first time. You are a liar, because I'd gone back, obviously. I'd just done it. And it wasn't like I didn't know anyway. I'm very familiar with my own show. But just to be on the safe side, I went out, got back a few clips out of it as well while I was at it, so I could edit them into these videos. But there was an outright lie. You can't refract a tangent, because it's not a tangent anymore, and it's required in the geometry, which they did. So there's no getting around the lie, as I explained to you yesterday. Now, on 3, if not 4 separate occasions, he's defended the lie in the same way. I refracted everything. I told you I refracted everything. I made a presentation where I refracted everything. I did refract the lighthouse. He didn't. He didn't refract the horizon. Now, he can't refract the horizon when doing the geometry, because it wouldn't be a tangent anymore. That is the paradox, and hence me being so stern when I point it out as a lie and say he has defended it. Now, you can't defend the indefensible. You can only lie about it more. Perfect opportunity to highlight that, rather than just have him pollute the airwaves with non-stop lies. He's had 3 opportunities, if not 4, Anthony.
Anthony, hold on. You would have got along great, because I know why you want him in here. You want to abuse him.
Yes.
I know what you
fit
want.
right in with my crew.
Yeah, well, that makes you as bad as him. Don't sink to their level. And this has happened time and time again, and I'm not going to name any particular names, because when it was happening, and behind the scenes, you know who I'm talking about, Anthony, specifically, because behind the scenes, I'll tell you. But on air, the same people who I consider liars, now not to the point where I've got videotaped proof and evidence and an unjustifiable position where you're bending a tangent, which is nonsense. You know, I can definitely call that overt and a lie. Whereas when instances where it's a bit more sneaky or a bit more weaselly or slimy, I've just turned my back on them, explained to the people around me how I perceive what they've done to be a lie. Whether or not they agree is irrelevant. I've already turned my back on that person. Now, this is no different, other than my only relationship with Rumpus is public. So therefore, there's no, well, I'm going to tell you guys behind the scenes about it. There is no relationship like that with Rumpus. You guys might have that, but I choose personally not to do that, ever.
You're no fun.
I don't see this as... hold on, I've got to address that. I'm sorry, John. What's the label under this video, Neil? Is it entertainment?
Education, I got it.
Right, I'm not here for a laugh.
We could abuse him a little bit. He deserves it.
Right, I'm not going to take out my sword and do the whole Russell Crowe bit, but by the same token, this is not an entertainment show. It's an education show.
Just to let you know, Nathan, when you ask the gravity question, I do have a scientific answer, apparently. So I'll be ready to do it. I don't know if you want to do that first or last. Just plot it where you want it.
That sounds super juicy. Oh, yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Just plot it when you want it.
Yeah, just to finish off my plug, so that's coming out if you're a member and you're watching this now, which is the only way you'd be watching it, and you've probably watched it anyway because it was a members video in full when it was uncut. That reminds me, somebody had put out a video, and they were trying to fathom how a video came out that was brand new, listed at that date, but had views and comments on it. And they're like, it's members only. I was like, nah, guess again. Not right. And I had a few trolls who were trying to explain it away and constantly just saying, yeah, it's just a scammer. He just wants members' money. I was like, no, that's not correct. And so far, none of them have figured it out, which I thought was quite amusing. How has this video been published today, got views a week ago, and is not a members video turned public? How's that possible? And they can't figure it out. So I'll drop that in there because it gave me a little bit of amusement.
I was going to say about lying and catching someone in a lie. If you allow somebody like that to continue to speak and minimalize their lie, It's almost like accepting it and trying to move past it.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty big deal.
Right.
Completely agree.
Yep.
I'd set a bad example, to my audience. How do I think we can progress in this argument? Do you think we can progress by going to NASA's door, knocking on it with pitchforks and saying, "Give us the truth, we want to know what it really is"? Oh dear. If that's what you think is going to progress the argument, or your life in general, you're wrong. Turning your back on these liars, that's what you got to do. If you are not paying attention to what NASA tell you, then they have absolutely no power over you whatsoever. None. But if you're still interacting with them, making videos about them, you're essentially assisting them. You're helping them perpetuate the lie. Now, technically, in the past I've said, I commend all those people making videos debunking NASA. Well, I think we've had the gas pressure without a container argument long enough now to say, no, it's not required. It's not been required on my show. Has anybody been crying out, going, "Why don't you cover NASA more?" No. Because the moment it comes up, we debunk it with natural law. Don't get much stronger defence than that. So, don't need to debunk NASA stuff, and I see it as interaction with liars. And you're only going to assist them. They need that interaction.
I don't know. Has anybody tried the pitchfork method?
Yeah, Whitsitt and Nathan Thompson.
Like, they're expressing their frustration. When I see Nathan Thompson going up to an astronaut and telling him he's a liar, I understand and can empathise with the frustration felt in that moment by somebody who knows they've been lied to by that group of people. Now, that's not to say that every person at NASA's a liar, far from it. Astronauts, yeah, definitely. You can point the finger on them. They're on a trapeze. They know they're lying. They're not in a simulation, Neil, before you say it. They haven't been drugged and hypnotised either. They're just actors on high wire. And they know. Now, did they know initially when they were told they were going to go to the moon? I don't think so. I think they thought they were going to go. And then they found out the awful truth and had to lie from that day to this. Well, that doesn't change what they are. They're liars. And you can point at them.
They're actors.
They smile
they're
way too
actors.
much.
Again?
They're plastic. These people,
Why
they
would they
smile
lie?
so much. They're plastic and they're fake and they overact, if anything. If you can't tell if they're lying and just overacting, it's hard to believe.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Sleeping Warrior, Neil, Father of a Stolen Child, 10th Mad, Adam Meakin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Morning.
And Ali.
Ahoy, hoy.
Hey, hey, hey.
Afternoon.
Good to have you.
Hi, boss.
Hi.
We'll start in a slightly different order today. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Yes.
Hello.
Hey up, Harwin. Do you want to present my screen, Nathan? I've got something really interesting to show. This
Certainly.
has been cited to me by a ball earther. Do you see my my web browser, right?
I will in a
This
moment.
Donut.
Yes.
This is a flat Earth, right? What he's had to do in this video? This is from Science Click English, and it's dated the 3rd of September 2020. A new way to visualize general relativity. We've all seen the heavy balls placed on the sheet, and it causes the thing to dip in the middle, and then they can create what look like temporary orbits as they throw things around. This guy's flattened the Earth in the middle to make this work, right? Which is brilliant. I love the fact that he's had to describe it and visualize this as a flat plane in the middle of a space-time continuum. But what he's doing to try and explain how space-time works, he's got the grid references. These are all the straight lines of the geodesic paths. And what he's saying is that it creates like a gravity well, so that something that's traveling in a straight line will appear to fall in towards the Earth and then go back out the other side. And that's basically the explanation that he gives for why Newton's apple falls to the ground. This is what he's trying to explain. He's trying to explain how Newton's apple falls to the ground. And this is the $1 million question, because obviously Newtonian mechanics, mechanical gravitation, or classical mechanics, or whatever you want to call Newton's, said that there was a force of attraction, or there appeared to be a force of attraction to the Earth of the apple, and that's what pulls it down. Einstein said, no, it wasn't that was pulling it down. Einstein said that the Earth was accelerating upwards. It wasn't the apple falling down, it was the Earth accelerating upwards. But this video talks about it with respect to the space-time continuum, which we think is just poetry and imagination when they describe how the apple falls. But what he's saying is that as the Earth is traveling along its geodesic path orbiting the sun, he's saying that the apple is going with the Earth as it's falling from the tree. So as they're both heading in the same direction, there is a bending of space-time which allows the apple to fall into the path of the Earth. It's not actually accelerating. Well, it is actually accelerating, but in space-time continuum, the geodesic path remains straight, and it's not actually accelerating. It gives the appearance of acceleration, but it's not actual acceleration. But what's really interesting about this is the way he's got this visualization, and it's probably the best way I've seen it done, to be fair, but it just works the wrong way. Let me just go back to the thing here. Because what he's trying, this is it. It's this little bit. I'm conscious of not playing too much. So what he's got here, he's trying to show these straight geodesic paths that are influenced by the Earth to carry on along their straight path. And this is what he explains the Newton's apple falling from the tree with. But there's a couple of major fundamental problems with this illustration. And I have pre-armed like 10th and Adam to ask me a couple of questions, because let's make this full screen so that you can see it a little bit better. 10th, give me the key question that I asked you to ask me. Go on.
Yeah, how does the Eddington experiment work with this explanation?
Do you know what, 10th? I'm so glad you asked about how the Eddington experiment worked on this. Now, the Eddington experiment was performed in 1919, and it was claimed by astronomers at the time that the sun was occulting a particular star. And if Einstein's theory of general relativity was correct, the bending of space-time would allow the star behind the sun to appear because of the distortion of space-time. Well, this doesn't work with this, because it would have to be the opposite way around, because the Earth's supposed to push. In the Eddington experiment, if there was something that was occulting the star, the light path going to it would have to bend around it and come back out the other side, like an orange in a sock. But this is depicting it the other way. This is like water going down a drain hole. So the Eddington experiment couldn't possibly work if this visualization was correct, because an object that is obstructed by the Earth in this observation is still obstructed by the Earth. And if an object is only just going to have a near miss, say, along this geodesic path, that means it's visual before the event, but then the Earth space-time continuum then brings it towards the Earth and then pulls it away from the Earth. It doesn't bring anything back. So the Eddington experiment doesn't work with this visualization, even though it seems to make intuitive sense, because it seems to make sense, right? But it doesn't work for the Eddington experiment. Adam.
Well, yeah. I mean, doesn't Einstein claim the Earth was accelerating up, though, to
He
explain.
does. Einstein's equivalence principle is that you couldn't tell the difference between being in a gravitational field and accelerating upwards at 9.8 meters per second squared. His argument is that the apple falls to the earth because the earth is accelerating up, not because there's a geodesic path that's appearing to change time and bend space-time. He says the earth moves up. Now, the problem with that argument is that's not what he's depicting here. So Einstein's argument doesn't work. This poetry and illustration thing doesn't work. And there's a third point, and I've got it in here. I can't remember what it was now. Oh yeah. So bearing in mind that we're supposed to live on a sphere, if Earth is traveling along its geodesic path and it's going around the sun in its orbit along its geodesic straight path, that would mean that you would have an apple falling from a tree, and for 12 hours of the day, it would fall with a different rate or a different something. It would behave differently for 12 hours to the other 12 hours where there would be a phase shift because we're going along a geodesic path. So for every 12 hours it would fall with particular characteristics, then it would phase change, and then it would be going against the geodesic path, and the apple would fall slightly different, and it would be measurable every single day. So again, this doesn't match reality. Nonetheless, it's a lovely visualization, and it's very much poetic and imagination. But as Max Planck famously said, experiment is the only means of knowledge at our disposal. Everything else is just poetry and imagination. And this is the most beautiful poetry and imagination I have seen to explain Newton's apple falling from the tree, explained with Einstein. So brilliant video, complete and utter horseshit.
You say explained.
I have an objection.
The question on the table that you gave a response in this regard to was any scientific evidence of gravity. Now, don't get me wrong, you mentioned an experiment, but this isn't that. You're saying about it being visualizations and saying, how we see this representation of a bowling ball stretched on fabric. Well,
No, Nathan. No, you're mistaken, Nathan. This is from Science Click English. He's got 118,000 subscribers, and the consensus opinion is that this is how it now works. So you're wrong, Nathan, because everybody seems to agree with him.
I don't care about consensus. We're asking for scientific evidence, right? Now, you said at the end about the only thing we've got in terms of actually providing us with some validation for this crap is an experiment. Now, if it's science, then it's got an experiment. Well, what's the natural phenomena being observed? I might as well ask it. I won't leave it rhetorical. What is the phenomena being observed, Anthony?
Can I just say, in this thing here, I says to him about the Eddington experiment. I says, otherwise, the Eddington experiment, it wasn't an experiment. So I'm telling him that it's not an experiment. So you're right to point it out, and I didn't miss it out in my response to him. I just wanted to make 2 or 3 points against this visualization. But you're right, there is no experiment for bendy space-time because you can't apply experiment to it. It's purely based in maths, a bit like gravity.
So therefore, it doesn't have any experimental data. It doesn't have any viable hypotheses for the claims. They're just so stories. You said quite a few times because Einstein says. Well, I don't care what Einstein says with his maths. It's just a way of saying things. It's just another language. But is it describing reality? No. It's a concept he's describing. Well, so what? This concept has nothing to do with physical reality.
I know, but Nathan, it's such a pretty visualization.
Yeah, but
Very
isn't
pretty.
reality the apple meets the road?
Look, Anthony wants to give this guy props for creating a very beautiful visualization around a just so story that has absolutely no scientific evidence. John, what did you want to add? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say there's a more glaring problem with it because they're depicting a flat Earth in 4-dimensional space-time, but we observe a flat Earth in the 3rd dimension. So
it's lovely. I mean,
that can't be right.
I don't know if I'm still playing here, but this is what the guy says. He's to make this work in his visualization. He's had to make the Earth flat, and I'm like, it's brilliant.
No way. Yeah, well, that's typical, isn't it? That's fairly atypical because what you've got is every single argument that actually has any research done into it starts with the presupposition of a sphere, but then actually goes forward to measure flat planes.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a good video. You should go and watch it and just look at the poetry that it actually is. Because
what's the guy's name?
If you're an Einstein buff or a gravity buff, you're going to look at this and think, yeah, that's how the Newton's apple works. But when you think about it and cross-relate it to the other claims that are made in general relativity, none of it works. Eddington's doesn't work. You can't explain it when you go in different times of the day because it would be a phase shift. It's just complete nonsense.
Perfect. Well, we're on the subject, though. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No.
Any signs of physical Earth curvature, formerly known as the geometric horizon?
Not physical. Apparent. Optical.
No,
Weather related.
No, you need it to be geometric if you're a globe head, because you've got geometry being done.
Doesn't the horizon doesn't even look within 5% of its claimed geometric position today.
Yeah, we can't be within 5% of a claimed geometric position because it's only 5% within a claim of something, as opposed to actually being within 5% of something you cannot measure and we have debunked. You can't make the assertion you were in 5% of something you can't see. How do you know? Have you measured it? You can't see it. So how can you claim you're within 5% of it? You can't.
Would that make them would that make them 105% wrong?
Makes them 100% wrong.
And then the 5% on top?
There is no 5% on top. It's just a claim that can't be validated. If you're going to say you're within 5% of something, right? Horses are within 5% of unicorns. Are they? How'd you know? Well, because they're within 5% of the anatomy of a unicorn. Well, have you compared it to a unicorn? Oh, I can't do that. Unicorns aren't real. But we're within 5% of them.
Well, we can model it with DNA sequencing, Nathan, so it's close enough with the model.
Oh, that makes unicorns real.
Yeah. And then based on the model, we can make predictive calculations to how we could make the unicorn have 2 horns instead of 1 horn. I mean, what's the problem?
The thing that you're comparing it to and saying it's within 5% of doesn't exist.
Yeah, but if I can model it and calculate and make predictions based on it, Nathan, where's your model?
Who cares? The thing that's being claimed in terms of the nature of our reality is that we're on a sphere, it falls away at 8 inches per mile squared, we have drop as a consequence. None of those things are demonstratable, none of those things are showable. So, who cares?
You haven't got a model, Nathan. I don't have to take you seriously, I'm afraid. You debunked.
All right. Well, what am I making a claim that requires a model for? I can make a claim with a model. I've got a model in Google Earth that is used by professionals on a daily basis to build stuff, and it's flat.
You do realise that like the horizon's curved on that model, Nathan. You've got to zoom out a little bit.
What the depiction might be, but the measurements aren't, and that's what people actually use.
Yeah, but you can't prove that.
I can. They're there as proof with no drop and used by professionals. So I can prove it. They're used daily.
See, Nathan, you're only saying that because you confuse the word level and horizontal with curved. Those level and horizontal lines are actually curved.
All right, tell it to the people building stuff who absolutely utilise it as is and don't make any conversions and worry about curve that's not depicted. If they had to worry about curve, it would be depicted.
You're just a moron, Nathan.
Excellent rebuttal. Meanwhile, you don't have a geometric sphere edge for a horizon, fundamentalist religious globe-believing zealots. We've debunked it with the black swan. Any evidence of the R value?
We can calculate it.
In physical reality,
5%.
Can't get within 5% of something you can't see and doesn't exist.
Oh, but it is always there, Nathan. You just can't see it because the atmosphere is there. If you're trying to say that we'd have to remove the atmosphere to be able to see the geometric radius.
And where's there?
Just go up really high on a clear day.
What, to get around all the refraction that's at 7/6R as opposed to the refraction we could argue that is being increased by raising your altitude? Yeah.
And I'll ignore the fact that if we go up the high mountain like Alberuni did, I'll ignore the fact that we're now looking down into a density gradient from elevation, and that's going to cause distortion. I'll ignore that. I'll ignore the clouds that are going to blur the horizon, so you can't really see where the line is that demarks space from the geometric edge. I'll ignore the fact that all the things that they use against us at ground level just don't apply when it's at the top of the mountain.
Well, no, it doesn't apply for them either, because when they're depicting their top of the mountain, you're seeing the side of your own head and a tangent point horizon. So, you know, you're never going to get those views. Even if they claim terrestrial refraction at 7/6 of a radius we've debunked, that's not a view you can attain in orthographic Muppet vision. So you're never going to see anything when they're claiming 7/6R. That's not how you see So refraction in the atmosphere, as they'll assert in their maths because they've got sphere-shaped air, is irrelevant when you're up a mountain because we don't have sphere-shaped air with light bending around it in their maths, and that's not how we see the world. So it's irrelevant. Meanwhile, the geometric horizon is there. Where's there, Anthony?
Well, if we calculate it, then we can pinpoint how far away it should be. And because calculations are essentially measurements, Nathan, because I'm stupid and don't realize the difference, it means that we have the distance to the horizon. It's just that the atmosphere blocks it and you have to believe.
Yeah, atmosphere, begging the question fallacy I've just covered. So there is in the maths. That's where there is. The geometric horizon, quote, the rumpus, only exists in the maths. So there isn't out there if we had no atmosphere, sphere-shaped air, begging the question fallacy, because that only exists in the maths also. So no, it won't be there, because in reality, there doesn't exist.
Well, if
You're a
you ain't got a
moron, Nathan.
measurement, how are you doing a calculation?
You don't. It's the end of the claim of globe Earth. It ended January the 1st, 2020, with the Black Swan.
I thought we knew that the Earth was a ball for thousands of years.
And therefore you can measure it and assert that it's blocking things in the distance with its physical geometry until you debunk that claim with the Black Swan. Then you can't make that claim anymore. Or you can lie, as Rumpus does on the video I'm releasing tonight, as a live audience will get to see, if you're not watching this on the pre-show or whatever, Uncut and After Show. So tonight at 8:45, there's going to be a presentation of Rumpus lying overtly and what you should do to deal with that, i.e. turn your back on Rumpus. He's a liar, and he's a proven liar. Now, can he get around his lie? No, but he's still going to make 3 or 4 attempts to lie in defence of his lie, which is what liars do. Now, in the case of the Isle of Man discussion, they all drew a tangent. Now, what is a tangent? Well, number one, it's required to do their geometric assertions, but it's a straight line. So when Rumpus comes here in defence of the Black Swan 18 months after the fact and says, with his lie, I refracted, quote, everything at the Isle of Man, that is a lie. And that's what you've got to do when you've drawn tangents in geometric mathematics to make a claim of an earth curve edge that gets in the way. You've got to lie when it's no longer an earth curve edge, it's refracted, because it's no longer geometric and no longer allows you to make the assertions you have made here on this show with the Isle of Man. Well, that means you've got to lie. Well, that's where the globe ends, with people having to lie for it. I also said I want the heads of all the other people who came here and lied. I want to know if it's stupidity or if you're directly, unknowingly lying also. All of the people who came here and drew a tangent with the maths and said that the Isle of Man demonstrated earth curve by way of its physical obstruction, every single one of those people have been debunked. Bad news. It's bad times to be a glober. And the only out is to lie. That's going to be painful, far more painful than dealing with cognitive dissonance. Overt lying is far more painful. Now, if you're here like Rumpus is, and you know you're lying when you claim it's refracted with respect to the horizon, and then later say the horizon's also refracted, well, the lighthouse is refracted, because you haven't refracted it. It couldn't be refracted. It's a tangent, ergo straight. Then that's the position you're left in with a globe belief. Having to lie. Speaking of lies, any evidence of gas pressure without a container?
Yeah, to Tommy, he asked Conspiracy Cats 17 times that question, and eventually he got to the 18th question, and the Conspiracy Cats just said, we don't need a container, you just need the gas.
And how would he calculate that within gas law or the second law of thermodynamics? Don't they contain a V? That would be a volume.
Yeah, they calculate it with a volume, and when asked for demonstration of this said thing, they just completely... They don't have any demonstrations. They result back to calculations, and if calculations are okay, then that's what they'll go with, because that's the only explanation they've got. No demonstrations, though, right?
It's not a great
Correct me
comment.
if I'm wrong.
I can't give credit
Anthony,
to the... Go on, 10th.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, but didn't Conspiracy Cats in the previous show say that he was going to show gas pressure without a container?
I don't remember, if I'm honest. Probably. I don't know.
And he never came forward with it. And so now you're saying Tommy held him to task, and his answer was what?
17 times he asked him. 17 times.
And his answer was what?
You don't need a container. You just need the gas.
So you don't need a container to have gas pressure, is what he's saying then.
Correct. You just need the gas.
When he said without the container there can be no pressure, or without the balloon there is no pressure, he was wrong, and he's now contradicting himself. Yeah, lying. While he's overtly stated that a container is required, now he's saying one isn't, with no justification, in violation of several natural laws. That's what you have to do. Lie. When you're cornered 17 or 18 times by a flat earther just simply asking you to confirm that which you have already said, and then you don't confirm it, you go completely against your own words. In other words, lie. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with liars. Now, an interesting point was made by one of the commenters who I can't remember to credit, but somebody in the comments was saying, gravity's the container. And the commenter I can't credit was like, so you're conceding container required then? I thought that was genius. Another commenter, again, I can't credit, I'm sorry. For if you're that commenter, just leave a comment below, I'm really sorry. But someone else said to me, you do realise they're not talking about you anymore over on Cats and Co's channels? I'm like, let me get it straight. For 18 months, we have banged the devastating drum of the Black Swan because it's devastating. So it's never going to die or go away. It's worthy of continual repetition. Meanwhile, after a couple of weeks, the White Swan that was supposed to destroy Flat Earth has stopped being talked about. You're like, really? Well, he's a permanent part of my show, my friends. Cats and Co, thank you very much for throwing perspective back into the mix while we chop your head off with tangents you haven't got anymore for your geometry. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. They've stopped talking about it, have they? Oh, well, it's never going to go away from here. Perspective's real. Thanks very much for bringing it up.
Did you say that they'd stop talking about you or stop talking about Black Swan?
They specifically said talking about me in the comment.
On which channel's this?
I don't know why I didn't even know they were. Well, that's why I found it quite amusing. I'm like, I didn't even know they were talking about me. My understanding was their argument was about a straw man of flat earth perspective that we don't claim, that's oversimplified, now relabeled Mong trig, that they need to burn to acquire angular sizes to get drop values from a calculator that they don't want to use because they haven't got a geometric horizon anymore. That's the most concise summary I can give of what's happened in this regard. But it still throws perspective back on the table. And as Chocolate said yesterday, yeah, thanks very much, Cats. What, that fleur perspective you used to tell us we made up? Now you're using it in your calculations, but it's not actually in the globe calculations, the official geometry that hasn't got a tangent anymore. Yeah, we know. Nice that we can point that out, though.
It's not like they're not actually mentioning you. So maybe they're not talking about you, but they have songs written with your name in it. So maybe they're just singing about you.
Yeah, I don't care. My focus is on the argument, and the argument is devastating. That's why it's not going anywhere. Black Swan's been around for a long time now. 18 months in flat earth terms is 5 years. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No, John wanted to chime in, though.
Go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to say every time that they address you is another chance for one of their viewers to go and listen to your rebuttals. And it's a lot easier for them to just ignore the problem and deal with people making silly arguments and debunk those.
Right. I'd like to think we're on the cutting edge of flat earth arguments and globe debunkings here on Flat Earth Debate. And if you're a new globe believer who's come here to laugh, presumably leave a snidey comment, great. Subscribe today. Have we covered everything in housekeeping? Distance to the sun. Any evidence thereof?
Come on, wait.
Wouldn't you need R?
It's in the firmament.
Get out.
Wouldn't you need R?
They would need R for their distance at 93 million miles.
That's what I'm saying.
So would Einstein. I think that's it. Do we cover everything? I think we've covered everything. Yeah, that concludes the housekeeping with that sound of a tumbleweed coming from Anthony's mic.
Yeah. Over, really, isn't it? It's like I don't know how any of them can maintain the position other than just delusional denial. That is literally what they've got.
Yeah, as I said during the pre-show, you need to turn your back on these people. The things that are brainwashing you and poisoning you. Yes, it's wonderful that there's activists out there. I'm not knocking you. But by the same token, you'd be better off just turning your back on them.
Well, Anthony says they're delusional. Those signs appeared early when they said the straight and level is curved.
We are getting to the point where they're going to argue that we live on a flat ball. You realise that's coming, right?
They already do. Tangent planes.
Wait, Owen says that.
I'm going to read something from I saw, Gary. I think it's Wabenga. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but he was saying to Fight the Flat Earth. He said, "I don't care if 7 billion people on the face of the flat Earth think that level is curved. It does not make it so." And he's right. Doesn't matter what people think. Level does not mean curved. Fight the Flat Earth responds and says, "Old Gary is a dumbass even on Facebook. Typical flat earther. I'm right and the entire world is wrong. This shows the pure arrogance and willful ignorance of flat earthers." Well, he sees that flat does not mean curved. Level does not mean curved. Curving does not mean horizontal. He can contrast between antonyms and synonyms. But if you're a ball earther, you've got to argue that level and curved are synonyms rather than the antonyms that they actually are. So it's not going to be long before we can push these lead protagonists into all claiming that we live on a flat ball. And then I think that's when it gets to the absurd. We've reduced the argument down to the absurd.
It's already there.
Are they doing it?
Yeah, it's already down to absurdity. They're trying to bend tangents right now.
Yeah, bending straight lines.
Yeah, it's over. They're just,
I think what's happened is if you think of Ranty because he's topical at the minute, he looks out to the horizon. He sees stuff that he knows he shouldn't see, and for some reason he sees flat but thinks curve. It's like, how do you do that? That's like seeing hot and thinking cold, or seeing fast and thinking slow. How has he managed to get crosswise into that? Well, we all know with Ranty, but that's what the average baller does. They see blue and think red.
Conditional.
Because you said it there, because as the way of thinking, they see things they shouldn't see. Why shouldn't they see them?
Because
the only reason they think they shouldn't see them is because they think they're on a ball. They presuppose that. That's why they shouldn't be seeing this thing they're seeing.
I mean, I heard Ranty saying last I think he was on Jose's. I got a clip of him saying you can have flat water on a sphere. Well, he's essentially arguing disco ball Earth, but none of the ball earthers have called him out on that, because you can't have a disco ball Earth if it's a sphere, because water's got to curve at a set rate. You can't have flat water on a sphere. All bodies of water have got to they've got to curve over a set distance, and it starts to become measurable after about a quarter of a mile. You can't have flat water on a ball, Ranty. Why are the ball earthers not calling this out?
That's another commenter that said something to the effect of, Ranty didn't exactly disprove the globe when he was a flat earther, but you can be damn sure he will now he's a globe head.
I'd like to see that demonstrated. Flat water on the ball.
Just going to do a quick shout out to Godzilla37. Professional globers are professional liars. Changed my mind. Shout out to you, Godzilla37. Really appreciate the support.
Hey, everybody.
Right.
Hey, Nathan.
Isn't he claiming this local flatness?
Yeah, he said he's got papers that support it as well. Scientific papers that support it. And I'm like, really? Can we see these papers, please?
Excellent. Let's have them. Because your globe claims 8 inches per mile squared drop. from every vantage point. So yeah, great. Present them. Somehow thinking that you're helping the globe side? Keep it up, Ranty.
But why are none of the ballers calling him out on this disco ball earth? Because we don't live on a disco ball earth. It's supposed to be curved water, Ranty, not flat spots on a ball.
Hey, don't get into correcting Ranty on his claim of a globe earth. Look, right, he needs re-indoctrinating into the globe earth cult. It's not your job to do it. What he should be claiming, leave that up to Rumpus to tell him. Here's the lie you need to tell Ranty. Let's get it clear.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm criticising the ball earthers for not calling him out on his disco ball earth because that's not their model.
Yeah, at least get the lies right.
Well, everyone, how are things?
Very well, Brian. Good to have you.
Hey, Nathan. You know what it is? If he has papers from ballers who are obviously higher up the food chain than a lot of the people we deal with. And they are now of the opinion that they can't disprove 15 or 20 miles of flat because that's what everyone will experiences in their local area, 15 to 20 miles of flat. So now they're coming up with papers, I would say, that are stating that this is possible and they're messing around with supposed, I have to say it, forces of gravity. They have no choice because they are seeing the likes of us showing flat everywhere. And they're going out and they're finding flat for themselves, but they won't let go of the belief that it's a ball. So instead, they're coming up with a heap of nonsense and putting their stamp on some paper that states that it can be 15 or 20 miles of flat, but still be a ball. It's just crazy nonsense. It's basically just denial from if these people are real and they did write these papers, they're just denying that it's flat.
It's actually pathetic.
Oh yes, it is.
I think it's a great thing. Let them. What's that you say? You want to deny your claim in the first instance? I don't mind them presenting it and saying locally flat, and I have to turn around and say, okay, not 8 inches per mile squared then. Wonderful, welcome to flat Earth. No, but it's still a ball. You've just told me how flat it is, and that's not 8 inches per mile squared as claimed. Not spherical either. Wow, that's your claim.
What's interesting. If you think about this politically or from a public perception perspective, when Ranty's flipped, apparently, right, if you were a flat earther and you genuinely flipped back to the ball, you would just disappear, wouldn't you? You would kind of like fake your own death kind of thing, because you would never admit going back to the ball. You'd just vanish. But Ranty's doing the walk of shame and he's being paraded around like the sacrificial lamb. And I'm watching him thinking, poor Ranty, this is terrible. So long as he keeps doing that walk of shame, they'll accept him as a ball earther, because the public perception is a flat earther has gone back to the ball. But to do that, you've got to do the walk of shame in front of everyone. It's just embarrassing, Ranty.
Can you back off your mic a couple of inches? You're setting my subwoofer off with your plosives.
I heard Anthony say a second ago, just before I joined there, Anthony, you were talking about, was it Gary Wybanga, we're talking to Fight the Flat Earth.
Yeah.
And Fight the Flat Earth is if I have to think about it, he's number one for saying that that level is curved. Now, all elevations are taken off of mean sea level. We've had the people like Rumpus and George Netchuk and all these that are all captured by QE. Who all did state that all elevations are taken from the center of a sphere, right? But they were corrected on this by QE and other people. But QE came down hard on them because it's an oblate spheroid they believe in, not a sphere. So when people like Fight the Flat Earth say that level is curved because level is level with the center of his globe, then he's incorrect, because that's not level, because that's an oblate spheroid. So there's no set like the distance will change to the center of his sphere will change on a constant rate. You go 10 foot left or right, and technically you've changed the distance. So the level is not curved. Level is flat. Mean sea level, flat, just like Google Earth shows.
I was going to ask, is level curved when it's measured locally flat?
I've got proof. I've got proof of locally flat at Master V, Nathan, if you want to show it.
Yeah, but just to answer chocolate, no chocolate, and that's the point, isn't it, right? So wonderful. If everyone's getting annoyed with this, which it sounds like you are, oh, why are you denying your claim in the first instance? No, just put positive spin on it. They're denying their claim in the first instance. Hello?
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Keep going, guys. Just like refraction. Go, refraction. Locally flat. Yeah, go ahead.
Got the Dell style football, right?
That's basketball.
Dell put water on a football, similar looking football, although it's a basketball.
Yeah, watch out for them when the ball earthers bring up a basketball to give a demonstration or an explanation or whatever, some kind of supporting argument. Because when they do that, no one's pointing out to them that the basketball, nobody disputes exists. The basketball's in your hand, and it's obvious that it exists, and you can reference it in any way you want to because it's not contentious. But the geometric sphere edges, and that's the bit we're talking about. So you can't use a basketball to make the point that you're about to make when the basketball is not contentious. The geometric edge is.
Are you denying them a bounce back?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're claiming the first instance is Earth curve, demonstratable at the horizon. If you go and check out any advice from globe-believing fundies on how to debate us, they tell you quite clearly that the argument for a globe Earth starts at the horizon.
Anthony, can you repeat what you said with the basketball? What did you say?
So they'll often bring out a basketball and they'll say, like, for example, how do we calculate the radius to the basketball? And you'll either measure something along the circumference, and then you'll get from that, you'll get the diameter, and then you get the radius from it, or whatever. You can formulate it, however, in a few ways. But because the basketball's in your hand and it's not contentious that the basketball actually exists, they're actually citing a false equivalence because they're citing something that is demonstrably in your hand, and you can calculate it if you know that the sphere exists, the ball in your hand. If you know that exists, then you can calculate these things. But the Earth's geometric edge is contentious, and you don't know that it exists. So how can you distinguish between traversing along a flat plane and having the perception that you're going around a sphere with actually going around a sphere? You can't distinguish the two. So it's a false equivalence.
It's also a way of forcing you to beg the question. So Neil deGrasse Tyson does it the same with his beach ball that's the shape of a globe. And he says, you can't see the geometric horizon when you're 2 millimeters off this beach ball, or words to that effect. I'm paraphrasing slightly. But what he's doing is he's allowing you to understand that he's going to be describing Earth that way whilst holding something sphere-shaped. So on this sphere-shaped ball, we will have a geometric horizon and you can't see it from 2 millimeters above it. That stuff is flat. Well, you're not told overtly that there's a magic trick about to take place, which is to say that because he's described it that way, you then automatically assume that the geometric sphere edge horizon on a beach ball, obscuring your view or bending in his example, or not bending in his example, is going to be comparable to your horizon where you stand, automatically making you reify the horizon into something that should or shouldn't bend and is physical, because he's told you that's what a physical edge on a ball is while he holds it. Also, that the Earth's a sphere because there's a sphere in his hand and you're going to be considering the Earth in that way. So it forces you to beg the question of a sphere Earth, lets flat earthers reify the edge into something physical that should or shouldn't bend, whilst holding up a claim victory because he says that stuff is flat, whilst explaining that the physical edge of a sphere won't be bending from 2 millimeters above it. Therefore, your horizon, which is now obviously assumed to be the same as the beach ball horizon, right? Nod, nod. That's the trick.
Try telling flat earthers that. They get crazy when he says that. They're all happy. Meanwhile, he's saying, everybody on the ball.
I just made a little locally flat one.
I put it up.
Was it on? That's the principle, though, isn't it? What they're claiming that's.
Yeah, it's ludicrous. Ball Earth in first instance, regardless of disco ball locally flat. That's not going to give you 8 inches per mile squared. That's the claim.
Yeah, but why aren't the ball earthers calling this nonsense out? If Ranty's claiming local flat planes, that means disco ball. So where's the accumulation of the?
That's why I'm confused. Right? I thought we never got measurements of flat. All of a sudden now it's locally flat. That's a switch.
Remember, curvature is flat is the standard that curvature is measured against. So it's like they need the datum of flat, level, horizontal, whatever word you want to use to describe that flatness. They need a measured drop, and they don't have it.
I'd like to make a positive claim.
Good.
I'm going to go ahead and say that the horizon exists within the measuring device itself. And you can prove that by using different viewing devices to observe the horizon.
That's correct. So in Life is Short's presentation, he said almost the exact same words. So he said he's got a juxtaposition between the assertion that flat earthers make that the horizon rises to eye level. And he says, no, the horizon is your eye level. That's what it is. It's created by the lens of your eye, or in your case, you're comparing it to the instrumentation that forms the horizon for the device. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the, and it's, if it's that, then it's not the edge of a geometric sphere,
Right.
refracted or otherwise.
Right. It's directly affected by the calculable diffraction limit of the aperture. So you can calculate it. That's giving you a vanishing point, a diffraction limit.
Do you know, just thinking about
Without the optic, there can be no horizon.
Exactly.
just thinking about
But that's where the
Go on, John.
Sorry.
The baller says that there is no horizon on a flat plane. That's objectively that's true because the horizon exists within the camera or the whatever you're using to measure.
Interesting way of putting it. It's an optical phenomena as opposed to a physical sphere edge. Now, it's demonstrable that it can move by merely changing the optics of what you view it through, be it your eye or a super zoom telescope. That changes where it is. So it's obviously optical and obviously not a physical geometric limitation to your view. Earth curve's bunk.
That's why.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Earth curve is bunk.
Just thinking about the disco ball argument that Ranty's presenting. Adam's put on a disco ball with the earth overlaid on top of it. If it was possible that there was locally flat water the way it's claimed, it would mean that there would be times of the day when the moon would get certain reflected angles of flat water, and we would see disco ball lights passing across the face of the moon because it would be lighting up the reflected flat spots that are being angled towards the moon at that point. We should see disco ball evidence on the moon. Literally, that's what we should see.
Maybe.
Yeah, and all the edges where the water edges between the next block.
Yeah, there'd be an angle. It's nonsense.
Yeah, there would be an angle, a measurable angle. And at what scale does it start becoming not local anymore? Where does the local become not local and we start getting curved water?
Look, there's a danger here, Anthony, and you're going to fall into this trap real quick if you're not careful. Don't fight their positive position. Don't fight for Ranty to make the correct positive assertion, right? Just point out how it's wrong. So locally flat. So not 8 inches per mile squared from your observer point then. Welcome to flat Earth. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Not, here's your positive claim, Ranty. You should be saying blah, blah, blah. No, because that almost turns into you claiming it. You'll have some idiot like Simon Dan debunking you telling Ranty how he should be claiming globe Earth.
That is true. You'll get Sam and Dan debunking it with no science, just nonsense.
Your claim of Earth curve is ruined, says Simon Dan. Not our claim, Dick Brain.
Yeah, the trap there of actually getting involved, isn't there? As soon as you start getting involved in that absolute nonsense, you start thinking about it. There's nothing to think about. It's measured locally flat because everywhere is local and everywhere is flat.
Exactly.
You stupid flat earthers. Earth is not flat. It's just flat locally.
Don't mistake a concession.
That's how y'all sound.
Yeah, don't mistake a concession for an argument that needs repositioning for their positive claim. You know, don't prop the boxer that's fell to the ground down and say, look, you're supposed to be throwing punches like this. Just when they collapse to the ground saying locally flat, say, welcome to flat Earth. not 8 inches per mile squared drop from every vantage point. They're not measurable curvature. So flat. Okay. Yeah, we agree.
Yeah, I'm starting to like their concessions. Like refraction, every time you say, oh, when we ask you for the geometry of your globe and you tell us it's optical, oh, yeah, I'm cool with that. Keep going, guys.
That's why I
Yeah,
said
when they tell us we do not see a geometric horizon. Well, thank you very much for that. Welcome to Flat Earth.
A lot of the problem is that they can compartmentalize everything that that debunks their position. They just kind of set it in the back of their mind and ignore it. And it takes a while for them to actually address it.
Oh, beautiful circle segue. So yeah, like having to address the fact that you've drawn a tangent to what you claim is proved as Earth curve at the Isle of Man, you can then compartmentalise that away and then claim you've refracted everything. Or to put it another way, lie. Yeah, compartmentalisation causes problems when you have to defend those positions that you've put in the back of your mind with your geometric tangent points you all drew. Because now you're going to have to lie about that.
No, Nathan, you just don't understand. It's quantum flat. That means as soon as you perceive it, you observe it as a consciousness, it actually becomes flat. But outside of your sight, it's a globe. Right? Quantum flat.
Well, if you're getting within 5% like of the geometric horizon by sending a tangent line to a refracted horizon, which means you're sending it to nothing. Do you know what I mean? By measuring absolutely nothing, I am within 5% of my belief.
Yeah, I covered this earlier, Brian, with unicorns. Well, a unicorn's within 5% of a horse. Is it? Yeah, how'd you know? Well, because it's within 5% of it. Here's the maths. But unicorns aren't real. Yeah, but horses are within 5% of them.
Yeah, remember that one.
That will always stir up a conversation.
Been a couple of weeks
The
now since
observation
Reality came
collapses
out.
the globe function. Come on, the observation collapses the globe function.
Yeah, that's a brilliant line.
I know.
He's got
Quantum
news.
flat. Locally
And
flat. When you perceive
hold
it
on,
flat, otherwise it's a globe. Collapsing
let-
the
Come on,
globe.
guys. That was good.
Guys. Let Arwin repeat that. He's been building up to that little punchline and we all rumpused it. It was great. Say it again, Arwin.
Yeah, I know you do. Quantum flat. When you observe it, it becomes flat because it collapses the globe function.
Perfect.
Because of the observation.
Excellent.
So let's make it a little bit more succinct. So knowledge of the horizon distance collapses the geometric horizon function.
Perfect. Oh, I can kiss you both. You're brilliant. Both of you race.
You're going to hate this then. It's actually not quantum flat. It's quantum curvature.
Quantum curvature.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Quantum curvature, because you collapse the curve function.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the quantum
Notice-
curvature experiment.
Notice how my pun, when I said this will stir up conversation, and 3 panel members at the spur at the moment came up with that.
Observation of horizon collapses the squaring function.
I have
I got-
a serious question.
Go on, John.
When they're calculating the horizon, which horizon are they calculating? Their eye, the device they're using at that moment? Which horizon are they calculating?
They're not, because they can't see that which they're making the claim in the positive assertion, first instance, of Earth curvature. So they're measuring something that only exists in the maths. To say they're getting within 5% of it when they measure something that isn't capable of being measured. So you can't assert I'm within 5% of it. 5% of it? What's it? Well, I'm within 5% of the geometric horizon. And what's that? Here, it is in my maths. Well, how can you say you're within 5% of it in reality if you can't see it? Well, we can't.
Hey, Nathan, I've got a few slides.
Yeah, at least they weren't
Master
lying.
You'll have to expand on that. What do you mean?
Well, they're not lying when they tell us we can't see the geometric horizon because they don't have one.
Yeah, they're conceding.
So they're
That's
not
what
lying.
they're doing. They're conceding.
Nathan, I got a few slides of Master V. Start with the last one. I'll wait till I see it on the screen. Go to the last one.
Okay.
that the last one?
Earth and sky. I've got.
Okay, yeah, that's start from there and move forward. Okay, so Earth and sky. So off of their own navigation sites and how they get readings and bearings and angles, says, from where we stand, Earth appears flat and the sky appears like a dome above us. The point where the dome of the sky meets the Earth is called the horizon. So this is what they're saying we see. And this is the way they explain it. Next slide, please.
It appears flat.
Yeah,
Okay.
move on to the next.
Some tangent with horizon.
Yeah, I'm a little, there we go. So when you use a sextant, you have to use the second mirror to reflect and bring that sun down to sea level, which is the horizon there. And then they waggle it left to right until it barely touches the horizon there. And that's where you take your sighting from. So you're using two objects to get an angle. One, the horizon, the other, the sun. And you take your reading at this tangency point. Next slide.
Okay.
Just got a little delay on your YouTube here. I may just go to the master beam myself. Which one do you have? The ship?
Yes, with star A, star B.
Yeah, all right. So here you've got the sextant on the left side and the reading. And this is going to tell you your angle. So in this one, you see the angle from the ship as depicted. Star B, the angle 75 degrees. Obviously, the straight line would be 90. And then star A is 30 degrees. And what do you need? You need the horizon. And it needs to be flat in order to achieve that angle to the 90. Next one, please. That's atoms locally flat. Or no, I'm sorry. Why is this not showing? Is it the one with the...
Got a sun on a lollipop stick, and then a sphere Earth with an oval, and the sun with an angle to it, and three.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. So on the top one, it's the same thing as I showed before, bringing the sun down, and it shows you where it's wrong and where it's right, where you bring it to the horizon and do that little waggle. So that's how you do it. And so obviously the second picture is the observer using the sextant, using the mirror, bringing that sun down to the horizon, as you see there. And how they depict it is on a globe. But guess what? That circle is called the circle of equal altitude. And that sun is at the radius of that circle, which is at its highest point, the zenith position. And from the observer to that GP, geographical position, where it's directly overhead on that part of the Earth, that has to be flat in order to get the angle. So there's your horizon. You see, as far as your eye lets you see, it doesn't matter what the weather is or miraging. It doesn't matter what kind of refraction phenomenon you want to bring in. It has to be level all the way to the GP of that sun. Next one, please.
Okay.
This is the one showing Eratosthenes, correct? And the real world?
Yes.
Okay, so here, as you can see on the real world, if you're on the flat plane, you can achieve what the sextant does, which is a horizon as one object and the luminary, in this case, the sun as the other, and the angle in between. And then on the Eratosthenes mistake, they have to say, well, sun rays has to come in parallel, and we're taking the measurement from the center of a presupposed sphere, which nobody does because everyone takes it off a curved surface in their model, but you can't get an angle from a curved surface. Next one, please.
Got your three circles.
Yeah, so here's three circles where you're going to exact your position as the observer is the red dot, that's you on the sailboat. And that's three different luminaries that you cite. And notice the 90-degree symbol on each one to the star. That means that star at that moment is the highest position over the Earth, and that's known as the geographical position. And you at the red are taking the sighting. So now you don't know where you are on the circle. You can be anywhere on one of these circles, So you take a second siding and the circles cross at 2 points. You say, I want to be exact. You take a third siding and all the 3 circles cross at 1 point, and that's where you are. Now, all those circles have to be flat water, have to be in order to get the angle. Next one, please.
Circle of equal altitude.
Yes. So now we go, hang on. Circle of equal altitude shows you exactly what one circle depicts, but you can imagine all 3 have to do this. The sun is over the highest point. You're 50 degrees away from it. Somewhere on that circle is 50 degrees from every vantage point. So if this represents 3,000 miles, then whoever's on the other side of the circle shooting the sun at 50 degrees is also 3,000 miles away, which makes you and the other person 6,000 miles of flat plane. This is making sense. Last one. You see the red lines?
Yep.
Okay, so I did this slide, and I only used 2 star positions referencing geographical position. Now, then there's the tangent plane line that I drew. Now, that star from the left, star 1, that's your 90 degrees to it. That's that arrow going down to right to the GP where it says GP star 1. So look at the tangent plane if you do that. It's not curving. It can't curve. It has to go straight. And so that way, it's impossible to have the GP of the sun on the curve. It has to be somewhere on that red line I'm drawing. And if it's going into outer space, then the sextant will never work. So the sextant destroys the globe, plows through refraction. The Earth is flat.
With that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed, or joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Yeah, it's nearly like that.
I wonder if that has anything to do with the eye being curved, why they think everything else is.
Well, supposedly they think it's all flat now, locally.
Yeah, indeed. Rejoice in the concession. I'm going to say it again because I don't know if there's certain people out there that still want to go and say, no, you should be claiming this, that, and the other about a sphere. It's like those role reversals only end up, as I said before, in someone idiot like Simandan coming along and telling you, as a flat earther, that your claim of Earth curve's debunked.
Morons.
So I heard you go back to the original pronunciation there, Tim.
Yeah, sorry.
Eratosthenes again?
Eratosthenes.
Eratos, yeah.
Eratosthenes.
I thought it was an old recording or something.
I stand corrected.
Sure,
you
it
were
gets
doing
mentioned.
so well for so much time. I was listening. Every time you were nailing it. And then all of a sudden you just, oops.
You got me
ain't
on
never going to do it
grammar.
again, though.
Everything is
Because
false.
Oh, do we even know if the guy existed?
You got
that's
me on
correct,
grammar.
but that was his name.
Well, there's
I
more.
want to see his birth certificate.
It's
There's
spelled
more evidence for the
spelled phonetically in the Principia.
Am I being spoken to?
Go ahead, John. You were
Did
gonna
you
say
just
there's
get-
more evidence of who?
And he just got back to the mic. It's like, is this silence because I was just asked a question? Shit, I better ask.
No, John was gonna say something.
Yeah, John.
There's more evidence of who?
I was going to say there's more historical evidence of Jesus Christ than there is any other historical figure. So if people can deny that he existed, then they can deny Eratosthenes too. You know, you can deny anything in history at that point.
Exactly my point. And Jesus made the firmament. He's spoken into existence.
Eratosthenes, just to be corrected.
Notice how that derailed the whole presentation, the grammar.
Got a major on the minors if you're a globehead.
What historical evidence is there for Jesus?
Loads. There's loads of
None.
historic. Oh, sorry,
Oh,
whoever was
really?
going to answer. Go ahead.
He's like written about in the Talmud, I think, and he's written about in Josephus. And I think that's about it.
There's very, very little actual historical, if you class it historical, evidence for Jesus.
Not true.
No, that's
Very
fact.
true.
I just don't handle any of it, Neil. You've got to back up your claim. Okay, there isn't.
Yep.
Why so?
But why is there not? Well, we'll cite it. There isn't any actually historic. There's scripture, there's churches, but actually, if we look at historical evidence of
What about
Jesus,
Josephus?
let me finish. I'll
Neil,
explain now.
Neil, you hand waved it, right? That doesn't mean when the person making the positive claim, even though he's proving a negative, gets to be interrupted. Just let him. Then feel free to challenge it with something contrary to his point. I know you triggered a little bit, but just calm down. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, contraire. I don't get triggered. I'm just in a workplace.
Okie
It's very noisy.
Okie dokie. Go ahead, Adam.
There's very actual little actual real what you consider historical evidence from the time of Jesus describing Jesus. There's scripture afterwards, which we can attribute to that, and there's argument about that. But actually, I think somebody's mentioned Josephus. There's a couple, and there, I think that mentions the crucifixion scene, and that doesn't even mention Jesus by name. It mentions somebody that you could attribute to Jesus in the description, I think. So actual real historical evidence, it's very interesting, actually, the complete absence of it in itself.
Absence of it? What about, would you not count a primary source as somebody writing in their own name about their experience with that person? You wouldn't call that primary source?
I would. Scholars would dispute that is a primary source. Yeah.
You can't get much more primary source than that.
No, I would suggest that scholars would dispute that they aren't primary sources, that they're written.
You're hand waving it. Hold on.
Not ascribed to.
Why not?
Named
Hold on.
people.
Don't just hand wave it like Neil did. You've got to give me a reason why.
Yeah, because they're not. You're talking like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Don't ask me what I'm talking about. I've given you my argument, and you said I wouldn't count it as primary source.
If you were saying that a primary source would be one of the Gospels, then I would say there would be lots of conjecture as to whether or not that is a primary source, as in it's highly disputable whether it's the disciple, the apostle themselves that wrote it, or more that it's something that's attributed to them later, as in this is the message that Matthew spoke.
Under those conditions, anybody that's not alive today that didn't experience it, you can hand wave it the same way.
No, I'm not hand waving it in that sense. I'm saying that doesn't mean it's primary source. It's after secondary, isn't it?
Well, you know, if say you have a scholar, because none of the books we have today were actually the books that existed 1,000 years ago. They become decrepit and falling apart. So we had to write new books for people to read.
Hold on. Are you talking about that? Hold on. That's contentious. You talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls?
No, I think what Neil's talking about there is over that length of time, scrolls decay, so it requires monks, etc., to retranscribe them.
Copies.
You've not
Hold on,
got
hold on.
you never
the
have
original.
the
Is that
original
yes?
because it
I'm
fell
asking
apart.
John.
But
I'm asking John. Is that what you talk? Are you talking about the scrolls that were found in the what 60s,
Well, yeah.
50s?
Any piece that has been written on paper will decay.
That's not what I'm asking.
If
I love it.
Well, no, I'm saying all the books that we have today, the books that are claimed from say over 1,000 years ago. Well, maybe not all of them. Some of them may have been able to have been kept, but most of them are copies.
Yeah.
So if the standard for the intellectuals is to say that because someone else copied this book, it's no longer primary source evidence, then you could apply that to almost all of history.
No, that wasn't his argument.
let me clarify it because it's descended into questioning the gospel, and that wasn't my point. My point was outside of scripture, actually within mainstream historical recording of the man called Jesus, there's very, very little. There's very, very little, which is, like I said, to me, exceedingly surprising considering very little, but the rest of the world is then built around him, like I said, churches, everything else. But actually documentation of whoever in Nazareth, the Nazarene, however, even described like that, it's surprisingly not there.
Okay, so if I paraphrase what you've just said and ignore the argument which has got segued away from about the Dead Sea Scrolls. Is it Red Sea or Dead Sea? Which one is it?
Dead Sea
Scrolls.
Is it Dead Sea?
Yeah.
Dead Sea Scrolls. If we segue away from that, you're saying if we look outside of the primary source first-hand accounts, then there's very little.
Well, they're not. That's highly disputable. They're not primary source first-hand accounts, are they? They're scriptures from a Gnostic sect in the desert hundreds and hundreds of years after the death.
Now you're on my argument. Yeah, we've got there again. You can put that to John, so I don't have to annoy him.
With a very, very, very dubious provenance as well.
You've triggered 10. You see, I knew this is.
Them, and first of all, I gave them my goats to eat, and then I saw some writing on them, so I stopped them. Then I was using them as firewood, and then I realised they were the most majestic scripts ever. And I'm, you know what I mean? It's a little ropey, that provenance for me.
Right, that's been thrown out there now.
Are we limiting this to the Dead Sea Scrolls?
That was one example. You can segue away from them if they're scary for you. 10th.
No. Actually, that was a great find. There are some 26,000 pieces of documents of the New Testament, copies from the original. And when you listen to the critics at the higher levels who are not even Christian trying to debate, like Gary Habershine, who has a lot of videos. He's a good source because he pulls out all the resources for these topics. They say, well, okay, we'll say these books are written by Paul, but we're not sure about these other ones. So they say out of the so many, we're only going to credit him 7. And then Gary says, yeah, that's fine. We'll go with your criticism. And you want to say, you're not sure of the other ones, and so on. But the Dead Sea Scrolls themselves, one of the scrolls found in there was a full copy of Isaiah, which is an Old Testament book. And it was 1,000 years earlier copy than any copy in existence, which means closer to the original. And it was spot on, word for word. So the whole point. So what I'm trying to say is this.
Just before you do though, I've got one minor thing. You said a complete copy. No, they found a jar of cornflakes. That's what they found.
No, they found the book of Isaiah.
When you say they found the book of Isaiah, that implies that you found a bound copy with legible. That is not what they found.
Well, that's what they said that they examined.
That's what they pieced back together from the jar of cornflakes.
No, I don't know. I'll find the source. But from my understanding, and now you got me curious because from my understanding,
no, it was fragments. 10th.
Well,
it was fragments.
I have
the tape
something
is
to the mix.
torn, and they put it together. Yes.
deliciously frosted, coated Frosties, as far as I'm concerned, because that's what it looked like, and it didn't certainly look like a book.
So the Dead Sea Scrolls are useless. You can just interpretations of whoever's putting them together.
Actually, what Tent is saying about the book of Isaiah, I believe that book, and only that book, was found almost immaculately preserved.
Okay, I
believe
might be
I had all
corrected.
that copied and
Okay.
printed out.
If you can send me a source for that, I'd be happily stood corrected in that regard if I'm wrong. But that's not as I understand it.
Just the book of Isaiah.
Okay, I could be wrong, 10th. If I am corrected on this, I will apologise and say I stand corrected. But as it stands, I don't think I am.
Text, aren't there?
Huh?
No, there are big chunks of text that match. The interesting thing for me there is if you accept that, what do you then do with all the other texts that aren't in the Bible that contradict modern viewpoints and modern doctrine that are still in that jar?
Hold on. I have an objection to that.
Well, it's you I'm asking, like, John. With regards to that, I know what I do with them. How do you deal with them? Because you believe Bible is Word of God. That's the book to use, don't you?
Hold on a sec. I didn't say that. That's not my position.
Is it not? Sorry, I don't.
Yeah, but Nathan just said that they were a jar of cornflakes. So what are you saying that the people that put them back together use their interpretations to see what fit where, and that's proof of what?
Well, we've got to take a big leap of faith.
Well, I have something to throw into the mix that may not be too popular, but I heard and saw some stuff on many times over the years that the first writings about Jesus weren't done until 200 or 300 years after his death. So what I will say about the whole thing is that what I find out with people who are Christians is that they are like Jesus existing, right, or not existing doesn't change the existence of our Creator. So our Creator is the important one. Jesus is a historical figure in accordance with the Bible.
Be careful.
Right?
Yeah, are there any scriptures from the time of Jesus? Like,
Let him
Sure you
finish.
do.
Why you have to
Let
let me
him
finish?
Let him finish.
All right, then I want to go because I got something.
Okay. The most important figure is the creator of our world, the creator of us. That's the most important figure. So we could argue about Jesus, about whether Jesus did exist or didn't exist. Whether Jesus did or didn't exist doesn't change the existence of our creator. That's my point.
I would agree.
Okay, my turn.
Go ahead, Neil.
I agree with that.
I just want to, before you do, Neil. Yes, Neil, you can go next. But I just want to parallel what Brian said because that is my position also, and I think I heard Chocolate say ditto.
Okay. You don't know who the creator is if you think Jesus is not important as
I don't
the creator.
think you're getting his point.
I got his point. Jesus is the creator. Okay, but the great Isaiah scroll is the best preserved and only nearly complete biblical book in the cache of 220 biblical scrolls discovered in the Qumran on the northwestern coast of the Dead Sea. So that is correct.
If you can
It's
send
the
me a
most
source for that.
intact, the book of Isaiah.
Okay. You're the second person to make that claim. I'll look at it. I'm not going to say, oh, right, well, then that proves it for me. Not at all. This very, very dubious source looks dubious, more dubious every time I look at it. And I'll look at this with a neutral. I don't care either way. I mean, I don't care. If it turns out to be absolutely legit, great. If it's not, I don't care. So, I'm very neutral when I look at
They
these
claimed it. I backed it.
Okay, calm down.
The assertion that the gospel writers were not the original authors is also disputed. There's lots of scholarship out there that asserts that the gospel writers are exactly who they purport to be, and that the gospels were in fact written in the first century.
I don't dispute that either. But the point I was making was that clearly it's a point of scholarly conjecture, and there isn't scholarly agreement on that.
Right.
Can I make a point on Nathan's primary source?
Yeah.
All right. I heard preachers say this, and I wrote it down. It was that good. A reliable collection of historical documents written by eyewitnesses during the lifetime of other eyewitnesses and report supernatural events that took place in fulfillment of specific prophecies and claim that the writings are divine rather than human in origin. It's a good summary to what Christians who believe the Word of God is from God, inspired through the Holy Spirit, written by men. Now, this Gary Habershine goes through detail by detail on his YouTube videos, describing when these documents were written. It was so. I know Brian said there are some people who say they weren't written at the 300 years afterwards, but that's false. According to his evidence, they were all written started within 20 years of his resurrection. And John the Apostle, 90 AD, was in Patmos writing, I believe, Revelation. So all you got to do is realize that the greatest attack is going to be on the person of Jesus Christ, because he claimed to be the creator. Now, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father but through me. And then he claimed to be the great I am. C.S. Lewis, who had to deal with this, who became a Christian, said, after studying the evidence and the documents and everything, you can only come up with three scenarios. Either he's who he says he is, Lord of all, he's a liar, or he's a lunatic. And then he goes through a great arguments about how he can't be a lunatic based on his life and what he did. So he threw that out. And then he says, well, let me finish. C.S. Lewis's testimony. And so C.S. Lewis, a genius of a man, said he can't be a lunatic or a liar. So that left, do I believe the record? Do I believe the written record of the eyewitnesses? And that's where he stood.
I don't see the contradiction, even as a Bible-believing Christian, that to receive that the Bible is the delivered word of God means it has to be the exact authors on the names of the books. I don't see the two claims as being necessarily inclusive of each other. And I know plenty of bishops that feel the same.
This might not be a very popular opinion.
Rephrase that, Adam. Hang on. I need to know what Adam is saying. I don't get what he's saying.
So you addressing whether or not the books were authored as such, yeah, you seem to validate it with it being the word of God, which I can't use, but I've read, and there are plenty of pastors, bishops, etc., that still hold the Bible as the word of God, but are quite happy to have these books assigned to those apostles posthumously, in the knowledge that their research demonstrates that that's what happened in their mind. Yeah, when I read these things, I did the full Yale course on this, went through it on YouTube. It's really, really good and insightful. So I don't see the point of disagreement there. The fact of the authorship, if I did believe it was the word of God, wouldn't necessarily be relevant. Does that make sense?
I'm not certain of it. I know that when I looked into some of the videos from the people who were in textual criticism and they were using the Bible to see who the authors were or were not, they would be so detailed and would discount it for any little reason, to where they only limit you to so many. And then they would say, but we know these 7 books were written by Paul.
Let me try, Adam. Adam, can I just try and summarize your point? You're saying if the argument is that in the first instance it is penned by God, then it makes the argument about the quote-unquote authors irrelevant. I think that's your point, Adam, correct?
Yeah, because...
Well, we're told how it's penned. The men were inspired by the Holy Spirit to write down the scriptures. And the word says, within the scriptures, God holds his word above his name. Right. So as a Christian, we know the originals were divinely transmitted to the authors. Then when copies were made, we already know by having so many copies that the scribes would write something on the side, and some of those things got put into other versions. And then every time they would find scrolls and compare those scrolls with the scrolls they had, they can see if they varied or not. And this is where they say 99.99%, it's all the same. So you have scribal errors, which no one denies. We say the divine origin was for the original, which no one denies as a Christian. And the copies could have scribal errors. Yes, that's not a problem.
That's a separate. That's not what I was discussing. Just transcription errors that you're going to get over time and places that the message doesn't change.
Correct.
I'm not challenging that. I think what you have confirmed, though, you have answered it indirectly in that actually, for you, even to challenge the authorship challenges the authenticity. So,
well, it's very simple.
I'm cool with that. I dig that.
No, I'll be even more upfront with it. If the word of God is in any way not from God, then which part do I say is, which part do I say isn't? So I'm going to discount the whole thing if I find that it's not, because when you look at what makes the Bible special, it isn't just all the other things, but the main thing is prophecy. There's no other book with prophecy. I know people claim that they have books with prophecy, but I'd like to see it. But from my understanding, the Bible has so many prophecies that have been fulfilled. And if you add that supernatural part of the Bible to when it states people, places, and things, like the cities, the cultures, the locations. I mean, I've gone to Israel, the Dead Sea, the Sea of Galilee, Jerusalem. I mean, it's all there. And the Roman world is described in there. I mean, the historical evidence from the Old Testament to all the way to the end of the New of world cultures, and it's accurate. And the Smithsonian even says we use the Bible for archaeology because it's so accurate. So what I'm saying is when you study the whole book from every angle, the one part that is outside of us is that supernatural part, which is the prophetic part. So how do you describe all the prophecies that have been fulfilled in the Bible when they were written well?
It is kind of bugged out, right? Because you have
might
to
have been all put together by a group of people, like strategically.
Hang on, I can hear chocolates.
Oh, hold on, Rams. Any chance you can drop and rejoin? You're absolutely blasting out. Also, before you continue, Chocolate, Random Brown had a point that he wanted to get in, but he never got a chance. Did you want to make your point, Random Brown? If I've said your name right.
Yes, thanks very much. Another thing that I think gets missed in a lot of the discussions about authorship and dates specifically is I think there's a lack of attention of early Christian history in the 1st and 2nd centuries. There's a 4-volume set I happen to have that's actually written about the writings of the early church fathers. And there's an enormous amount, well, I don't want to say enormous, but there's a lot of cross-referencing between the early church leaders writing to each other. And there were in many cases where they were quoting writings from the New Testament, from Paul, or from the Gospels themselves. And they're doing this in the 1st and 2nd centuries. So it's I think it's interesting that a lot of the critics look at textual criticism and say, oh, well, this doesn't match this, but then they seem to leave out the historical context of when these things were being written, and that there were other people around discussing them. That's all.
No, that's good, because Gary Habersheim talks a lot about that as well. There's a lot of evidence, but go on, Chocolate. What were you going to say?
I mean, it doesn't even seem that serious, but I was just going to say, it's one of those weird things because you have to have faith in what the words are saying, right? Because the guy that's writing it is telling you that he's inspired by God to write it. So if you don't have faith in his words, then what are you reading?
Right.
Well, the Bible, but the Bible doesn't.
That's
Can I answer that question?
Well, that's Adam's point, right? That's exactly Adam's point. If your first leap of faith, or I can't think of a better way of putting it, if your first acceptance is that it is the word of God, then that overrides everything else in terms of authorship anyway.
Yeah, but we're instructed by the Word of God to use our mind, to study to show ourselves approved. And faith is not blind faith. Faith is, when the Bible says use faith, how do you think the Bible is referencing faith? Is it saying put faith on something that can't be demonstrated? Is it saying to put faith on something that never can be demonstrated and is blind from the beginning, and you just got to trust something? That's not what the Bible is saying.
If Rams is Rams there, I'm going to say something after Rams, if that's okay. I know Rams is trying to say something.
Go ahead, Rams.
Yeah, I was just saying that couldn't it be possible that people came together and put the Bible together a few years after the fact and built it, basically?
So Nathan, did anybody give you any kind of citation that says that that's a complete works?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I did, but then my computer took a crap for a couple minutes. So it's literally in Wikipedia. Besides the fact that in 2003, I went to the library and printed the entire thing out in its entirety, and made it into a scroll.
No way.
So
Really?
yeah, I know for a fact that it's complete.
Okay, I'll have a study of it. It sounds like I owe you an apology though, 10th. After I've had a look, I'll give you one on the next show.
Well, no, I don't. It's you know, this is what, when I did, it's been a long time. I was in apologetics. I dived deep into it when I first became a Christian. I was so interested to know why this book stood out from other books. And it's been a while. I think if Paula was here, she'd be in the snap answering all these questions, because she's on it ever since.
I almost called her.
What's that?
I almost got in touch with her. I was on the verge of doing it at one point.
I was going to say, we need Paula here.
Well, because when you're on it, like right now I'm studying the sextant and how it works. So I'm on that. So if someone wants to talk to me about that, I can talk about it. And when I go back to 14 and a half to my early 20s, I studied all this stuff, and it validated itself through eyewitness testimony, through how many copies, through textual criticism. I used to talk to people who were against the Bible and would like to talk to them more often than the people who were, because I wanted to know what they were against. Now, once the internet came on, all these things are easy to find. So anyone on the show right now could just type in evidence for the real Jesus, go to, I mean, I'm sure there'll be some sites that already have going to be on the opposite side of that. But then if you go to enough places and find a decent Christian scholar, he's going to start listing those things. And then you listen to the debates that Gary Habersheim has had. It's just eye-opening as to how much evidence there is. And the New Testament being written before 90 AD was even done. And within 20 years, and while people were still alive, and people were talking about it, and there were eyewitnesses of his resurrection. All this can be accounted for. And even the most critical scholars, Bart something is his name, he doesn't even argue it, even though he's not a believer. He doesn't argue the authenticity and the timing of the scriptures being written. I forget his name though.
I tell you, the most messed up thing that ever happened was that movie Zeitgeist, because they give so many sources that are unreliable, and it's like some guy in the 1200s made a false assertion based on nothing, and then he's cited again in the 1300s by some other idiot doing the same thing, and then it just goes on till they lose the plot, and they lose their primary source evidence to make all these claims. Zeitgeist is debunked. There's a good YouTube video, and he gives citations for it.
What I would say about the whole thing is this: what in my experience in life, I have noticed with people who are Christians, unfortunately, it tends to be often the majority of Christians, that they give more faith and have more hope instilled in the character of Jesus than they do in the Creator. So what could happen is, if it was shown somehow that Jesus didn't exist, or the story was different than people were told, because I heard other stories that were different from the ending of Jesus, that he wasn't crucified. I've seen other stuff to do with that. But I'm not arguing it, because the point I'm making is, if they took away the character of Jesus, it would ruin the world of many, many Christians, because they're not understanding that Jesus is a representation of the Creator, but he's not the Creator.
Well,
no, you're wrong. You're wrong.
No, see, you're going to jump on me. The problem
No,
you have
because
is this.
according you're saying Christians. According to Christians, he is the creator.
Right, stop.
Man.
Everyone
You're
stop.
not seeing Brian's point.
Hold on. Right.
You're wrong. I am
Hold
seeing
on.
his
Everyone
point. I'm
stop.
just trying
Stop.
to tell him.
Too many triggered people. Stop. Brian, go back to go to the back of the church. Say 10 Hail Marys.
I understand what he's saying, but you have to
Not all
understand that
Christians.
as Christians,
Not
we
all
see him as creator.
Yeah, but he's a representation
Not-
of. He's not created. He's a representation of.
Okay,
he's
but
taught
Brian,
in Catholicism.
he
Brian, have
is.
you read the Bible?
Hang on,
Brian,
in
have you read the
Catholicism-
Bible?
Hang on.
Forget
in
about
Catholicism.
Catholicism.
In
Forget
Catholicism.
about
Stop.
Catholicism.
Stop.
Hold on.
Stop. Hello.
Hold on.
Neil.
Why do I keep
Neil.
getting freaking stopped?
Because you're jumping on me.
You're talking through him. I want to hear what you've got to say, but I actually want to hear it as opposed to hear it through Brian. Now, Neil. I'm going to ask Brian to carry on, then respond, please. Go ahead, Brian.
My point is in Catholicism, which has a ridiculous amount of followers, Jesus is taught to be the Son of God, a representation of God, not that he is God. See, this is the thing. There's different historical teachings about Jesus. My point being is that whatever happens with Jesus, whether he becomes shown to be 100% real, whether people believe he's 100% real, or they somehow show he wasn't, whichever. The point I'm making is he's not the creator, as in you can believe he's the creator, but whether he is written about and existed or didn't exist, the creator still did exist. Because even if you look at the Bible itself, all the stuff to do with the earth and the creation of the earth, that's all way before, that's all Old Testament stuff. Whereas anything to do with Jesus is New Testament. Is it not? Is Jesus not the midway point?
Just Neil.
More or less.
I just want to hear Neil respond. Thank you.
Okay.
So, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, can you all be quiet?
Okay, Brian, just tell me one book you read. Not the Bible. Just give me a book in school that you read. Name anything. I don't care what you name.
I didn't read any books, Neil. I don't read books.
Not biblical books. You have to read a
Any
book in
books.
school.
I don't read them.
Okay, there you go. So now you say, now I can get you. Because if we're talking about the Dark Tower, I never read the book. You read the book. So I can't even talk to you about that book. Have you read the Bible, Brian?
No, Neil, but I know.
Okay, so then how are you talking to me about the Bible if you never read it?
I'm not
Because
talking to you
in
about the
that
Bible.
Bible, you're saying the person of Jesus, he says, I and my Father are one. If you read Colossians, he's the fullness of the Godhead bodily. Scripture after scripture after scripture, he is God.
Okay, did
He is
Jesus write the
creator
Bible?
too.
Did Jesus write the New Testament? Or did
He said he's one. He didn't say he's God.
Jesus is the New Testament.
That's not the way I asked. That wasn't
Talk
what I
about
asked you.
writing it.
That's
he
not
is.
wasn't what I asked you, Neil. Did Jesus write the New Testament?
May I intercede?
No.
Go ahead.
No.
I gotta go to work.
Ah.
Go ahead, Tenth.
I just want to hear Brian give him his response.
Listen, can I just say one thing?
No.
Not all Christians believe Jesus is God.
No.
It's very simple.
Brian, no. God, some
Then
people
they're
don't
not
take no for an
Christians.
answer when it comes to their religion. No. Brian will get to make the end of his point without getting rumpus to all hell. Go ahead,
Hold on,
Brian.
it's not a religion.
Oh, God. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Nathan. Jesus didn't write anything. People wrote about Jesus. That's the claim, is it not? So Jesus didn't write these things. Other people, human beings wrote these things about a person that existed. So whether they were correct or incorrect or whatever doesn't change the fact, no matter what is in the Bible, doesn't change the fact that this is a creation. That is the end of that. It's being created.
It doesn't-
You know,
it
it's
doesn't
not.
negate-
It's not
it
the end of
doesn't
that.
negate
And
the
I'd like to have a chance
existence
to
of
talk.
information.
Hold on,
When it's
chocolate.
time.
Hold on, chocolate. Go ahead, 10th.
All right. First of all, Brian's wrong about the Catholics. Catholics do believe Jesus is the Son of God, but divine, God in human form. One
Yes,
God.
he
in
is the
three
second
persons.
person of the Trinity. He is the Word.
Correct. Let me go on here. So Brian is wrong about what the Catholics believe and teach, because the Catholics on this point do believe in one God who represents himself in three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The scripture from Old Testament to New Testament talks about the triune God. It's in Genesis. Let us make man in our image. Who's God talking to? Whose image are we made in? Is he talking to the angels? No. He's talking to the Holy Spirit and the Son. The one God is triune. Now, the Catholics do believe that. So that was the first mistake Brian has about what the Catholics believe. Second,
It's
every
not.
Christian.
I'm sorry. I'll correct you on that.
Hold on, Brian.
It's also
Hold on.
mistranslated. It's
Let's not
Elohim.
just descend into chaos for the third time. Just let 10th man get to the end of the point.
I could send you citations from Catholic websites that agree with everything I just said. So by you saying the Catholics don't, now I'm against the Catholic Church because they teach a lot of false other teachings, but this one they
We
do
could talk
not.
about that another time. I'm a Catholic.
Yeah, that's fine. But at least you know what I'm saying, right? You believe in the triune God.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. So here's a
So
Catholic,
God's not one
practicing
then.
Catholic, which I was at one time. Okay, so he admits that the Catholic teaching of the Trinity is Jesus is God. Now, the disciples worshipped him as God. The Pharisees said, "You're a man claiming to be God," and they stoned him for blasphemy. And Jesus did the I am that only God in the Old Testament could use. And that's why the Sadducees and Pharisees, the enemies of Christ, said, "You, a man claiming to be God, because you use the great I am." Jesus said, "Before Abraham was, I am." There is no doubt who Jesus claimed to be. I said it when C.S. Lewis gave his great argument. He's either who he says he is, Lord, or he's a liar or a lunatic. So
Where's
here's
Mary
the key.
come into all this?
If you're going to use the New Testament, then you got to say this is what it teaches, whether someone wants to accept it or not. It does teach Jesus is God. Now, if someone wants to say, "Oh, other people wrote the book, it was inspired by the Holy Spirit," have at it. We have enough great arguments on YouTube of the authenticity of the Bible through inspired writers and the, like I said, the big one, supernatural, the prophetic side of the Bible. We're seeing it now in these last days. My goodness. Before you know it, all of you are going to have to decide, are you going to take a mark to buy or sell? And then what are you going to say?
Okay. Thank you for the ultimatum. Anybody else got any comments on this?
I do.
I do.
I think
Stop.
in the words of Father Ted, that
Stop. I had Eric first. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, the thing about what he just said is that I have read the Bible many times. I don't know if I'm a Christian or what, but I'm a follower of the way. That's what they're originally called. In the beginning, it's not said God created the universe. It said God's, because it's translated Elohim, and Elohim is a plural. So God's created it, right? But there's obviously one at the beginning, and then it splits. So, and then also when they said he compares himself to God, when they said that to Jesus, Jesus himself says, we're all gods. He says, "Ye are gods." And that it's also referenced in Psalms. So
you're all over the
No,
place.
you got to say that in context. That's not what he said.
I can't.
Hold on. Hold on. I don't know if you just broke up. Did you want to make an end to that point, Eric? And then I want Adam next, as I heard him second.
Basically, what I'm trying to say is read it yourself and don't listen to other people's interpretations.
Okay,
because
thank you.
If a child can't read it and understand it, and you need someone else to explain it to you, you're probably wrong. And so just read it as a child and understand it as a child.
No.
Okay.
That's completely wrong.
Okay, thank you. We'll get you Steve.
You just made a mistake.
Steve, is it Save or Steve? I can't see with you flashing. Save something.
Yeah, it's Flat Earth Egypt.
Save Seek. Save Seek Jera. I can't quite see it.
Everybody trying to take the glory away from Christ.
Neil.
Only reaffirms it.
Okay, thank you. Adam, then
You're welcome.
10th, then the guy who was just speaking, save something.
What about me? I actually said something very soon after that.
Okay.
I'm
Right,
gonna go. I
Adam.
just wanted to have a sentence.
Oh, okay, right. Harp, get your sentence in. Too late. Adam, go
Christians
ahead.
believe that Jesus is God. Did you hear me, or I have to say it again?
We believe that Jesus is God. Thank you. Adam.
No. Not all Christians believe Jesus is God.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Adam.
And
then
they're
10th.
not Christians. Really simple.
Agreed.
I said
Let's
that.
keep
If you-
doctrines
if
out of
you're
the
a
way. This is
Christian-
not about doctrine, guys.
Guys, please. Gonna get Adam, then 10th, then the guy who save. What's your name? Adam, go ahead.
They got righteous coming in now. It's all going to be convoluted.
Oh God, Neil, please.
Just got something simple to say.
I think
Relax.
it's me.
I'm waiting my
Nathan.
turn.
I don't know if
Yeah.
Adam was saying that. Was he?
Oh, was it you? Sorry, Brian.
No, it was me. I'm just being polite.
Neil, then Brian,
I'm
then
not trying
10th.
to rob your space, Adam. I did say something. That's all.
It was relevant 5 minutes ago before the clustering. I'll say the point he was making. It was, I think it was 381. So I would say that what you're discussing there is in the words of Father Ted, an ecumenical matter.
Okay.
I think is the point that Father Ted always referred to when it got to this, because it is of great conjecture, I would suggest, as heard, and not. But I think from a Christian point of view, it's 381, where it's confirmed from a Catholicism point of view that Jesus is fully both
Okay.
flesh
Right,
and blood.
we'll get. Thank you, Adam. It was actually Father Jack, and it's Father Ted teaching him what to say when there's higher up priests coming to the house. That would be an ecumenical question. Anyway,
Yeah.
Brian, go ahead.
Thank you, Nathan. Yeah. You see, my point being, like when Tent said that I was wrong about Catholicism, what he's forgetting is that Catholicism and Christianity will be taught slightly different in different places. When I was growing up, every day they drilled Catholicism into us. And every day we were told, when it came to Jesus, that he was the Son of God. He was a representative of God on earth. He was the Son of God. And we were all sons and daughters of God, according to Jesus. And that's how it was taught to us for every day for all my years of school. So
You were very poorly
just
catechized,
because
I'm sorry to say.
Catholicism can be taught in one way in America, and it can be taught in a different way over here. Like, for instance, over here, when I was growing up, Christianity was the enemy, or people who were Christians, because of the whole Catholic and Protestant thing. So, it's like the whole the whole lot can be convoluted from one place to another.
Okay, we'll get into the troubles at another time. But 10th, do you want to respond? Then we're going to have save, seek Jariah afterwards.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Check. Okay, yeah, I want to give my time up to Paula. I just invited her. So summarize, Nathan.
Well, we'll get that guy's point then, because he's been waiting in the wings for a while. Go ahead.
Fine. That's fine.
Save, seek Jariah. If I'm saying your name.
Yeah, it's Flat Earth Egypt, if that's easier.
Perfect. Flat Earth Egypt. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm gonna be quick. I'm just gonna talk briefly about when someone used the word Elohim to mean gods. Yeah, it is a plural word. And ask any Jew, they don't believe in a trinity or in many gods. They believe in one God. It's a monotheistic religion. It's used in plural as a royal, like the royal we. And the 10th man also mentioned it. Made in the image, make man in the image of us, using the word us. There it's plural, but it's singular. It's like the royal we. Doesn't mean many gods. That's one thing. Also, Jesus actually denied being God in the Bible more than once. He actually denied it.
I knew
in
this
Mark,
was going to be
right?
interesting.
Mark 10.
Stop, Neil.
Why do you call me good?
please? Neil, you're slowing everything down. Try and get to the end of your point, then I'm going to throw it open before I introduce Paula. Sorry to keep you in the wings without an introduction, Paula. Go ahead, save, seek, Jariah. Flat Earth Egypt.
Also, he in John 17:3, when Jesus says, "Now this is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God," when he's talking to the Father, right? And Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. That's it.
Perfect. Right. Okay. Is there anybody who's been itching on the mic, just waiting, and I haven't noticed that they've been trying to get a word in before I open up to Paula and tell her why she's here?
Right.
Right here. Righteous.
Righteous first.
I got one.
Oh, come on. Put Paula on.
Neil, Righteous, and Chocolate. Just get your points out, then we can get to Paula. Please. Righteous, go ahead.
Right. I think you guys are all complicating it. Like it seems like we're talking about Trinity now, but it seems like the original point was like the existence of Christ, right?
Yes.
Right, because I came in late. Well, Jesus said, "Those that believe in my name, they shall speak new tongues, cast out devils, heal the sick, lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover." And to believe, faith comes by hearing. So we just press into the things of God, reading His Word, and then we build up our faith, and then that faith overflows, and then Jesus performs with signs following. Like, for example, me and Xerinx or Betty, we both speak in tongues. Like Jesus said, "They that believe in my name shall speak in new tongues." So this stuff is everywhere. There's like miracles, signs, and everything like that. But you got to press in. Jesus said, "Seek and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be answered." So it's really simple.
Thank you very much.
Anyways, that's it.
Right, Neil and Chocolate, then we'll finally get to Paula.
I'm just asking for Paula. I don't want to say nothing.
Chocolate, go ahead. That's the way I think. Finally. Hello, Paula. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Good to have you here.
Awesome.
Do you need any...
What's up?
Yeah, well, do you need... I was going to say, do you need any summary? You had a reasonable summary from Righteous just a moment ago in terms of why you've been contacted, shall we say?
Okay, something about whether Jesus claimed to be God?
Sort of. We're talking
or whether
about...
there's...
In the first instance, we're questioning primary source evidence, including the Dead Sea Scrolls, and then whether or not what I would label primary source and is challenged as being primary source evidence from people who have, for the sake of argument, witnessed miracles. That's all in contention, along with what was summarized by Righteous about the existence in the first instance. Also, there's a few other bits, but this is the main one. The actual penning, the authors themselves, a point by Adam, which I will throw in here, is that if it's the faith of the word of God being the authorship in the first instance, it matters not who, by historical standards, is claimed to have or claimed not to have actually penned it, which is in contention. Hopefully that's enough for you to go on. If not, just ask.
Okay. Starting from that, as far as authorship goes, yes, there are some books that are disputed or unknown. Like, we don't know really who wrote Ruth or Esther. But as I pointed out in one of my talks once, it doesn't matter, because the point is that they are quoted. And so, like Ruth, for example, we know what her actual words were because she was quoted. I'm sorry, suddenly the groundskeepers decide this is a good time to run really loud equipment. So anyway, like Ruth is quoted, Esther is quoted, and so who wrote it down, the quotes, are they a reliable person? Well, we don't always know. We know Moses wrote the first 5 books. I mean, nobody disputes that. And of course, farther back in time you go, the less sure anybody is. But for the New Testament, there's a lot of, yes, it's true that some of the Gospels don't identify themselves. Luke does. John does by description. And, Matthew and Mark, Matthew was one of the 12. And Mark presumably listened to Peter, wrote down basically Peter's account and the earliest account. The letters of Paul are all signed, so we know who wrote them. And then the letters of Peter, 2 Peter is in dispute by some people, but I don't find that their arguments against 2 Peter's authenticity to be very strong. And James identifies himself. John identifies himself in Revelation. So, but again, as the point it seems that you were making at first was that if God inspired it, the actual hand that did the writing is not that big of a deal. So the question is whether, for example, the gospel writers, whoever they were reliable witnesses. Were they trustworthy people? And that's a legal forensic question. And it's been examined by one of the founders of the Harvard School of Law by the name of Simon Greenleaf, generation or so ago, who applied his legal methods to the four gospel writers, cross-examined them, and found them credible witnesses. So I don't think you'll find another ancient text that is as well established and well attested as the Bible when it comes to reliability of authorship. Now, I did hear something about the royal we. That was not even a thing until about 300 years after the New Testament was finished. So Moses certainly did have no, there was no instance anywhere in the Old Testament, especially, even with the early books by Moses, of a royal we. It didn't exist then.
No. I said it's like the royal we. It's in Hebrew. When the plural is used in Hebrew.
Right, and you're talking about Elohim, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in plural.
But the thing is,
it's
it
Hebrew.
is a plural. It is a plural, and sometimes you find it in the singular, Eloha, or El.
Yeah, but when it's used in plural, it doesn't mean plural in Hebrew.
No, I'm just saying Elohim
I
is
was
a plural
contrasting
noun,
it to
but
the royal we.
The royal we did not exist when the Old Testament or the New Testament
I
was
agree.
written. There was no
I was
such thing.
contrasting it to the royal we. I'm not saying it is the royal we.
Okay,
In
so
the Hebrew,
we don't need that to establish plurality of the Godhead in the Old Testament. I did a debate. I wouldn't know where to post the link right now because I'm new to this format. I did a debate about a month ago on my channel, and I can get the link if anybody wants it. On the deity of Christ, on the nature of the Messiah, actually, and I spent about a half hour laying out the case. Part of that time on just the Old Testament plurality of God, because, for example, Psalm 110, I think, is where from the one Jesus quoted, where he said, "The Lord said to my Lord." Okay, and I went through and looked at all the different forms of the names of God in the Old Testament, and there's many more than that reference. So it is established, I think, at least, if you want to listen to the debate, like I said, I can give you the link. It's established that there is a plurality of the Godhead in the Old Testament by description, by the use of names.
ask any Jew. It's very simple. Ask any Jew, do they believe in one God or many gods? Ask any Jew who read the Old Testament.
I know
it's
they
very
believe
simple.
in one God, but I'm making
It's
the
their
point
language,
that there is a
and they know.
plurality. There was even a concept called the two powers that wasn't abandoned until after the Christian era began, and they decided they couldn't have that because Jesus was the other power. And so it is not a new concept. The plurality of God is not a new concept, not a Christian made-up concept. It is. There are many who wrote, like I said, before the time of Christ, who believed in the two powers in the Old Testament. So, and we also have the Ruach, the Spirit of God. So anyway, like I said, I can't do the whole half-hour presentation right now, but I can get you a link to where I did that if you're interested.
Well, there's a sorry, Paula. There's the outstanding assertion is still on the table as far as I can tell. So, Flat Earth Egypt, you said that plural doesn't mean plural in Hebrew. That was your statement.
Yep.
Okay. Do you want
to... It's obvious. Mainstream Jews don't believe in many gods. It's a monotheistic religion. Ask any Jew when they read the Bible, when they read the word Elohim, what does it mean?
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate I appreciate that, but I'm saying, what have you got to back it in terms of your assertion in Hebrew that it isn't specifically meaning plural when used in the Bible?
It's called an honorific plural. Okay, it's not a royal we. It's called an honorific plural. Hebrews use honorific plurals to, as the name denotes, give honor to something, usually a proper noun, but it can also be a concept. right? That they're trying to show reverence for, and they use the plural to show this reverence.
Okay.
Thank you, RC.
That's a very.
He's
very
asking
good...
you to back your claim, though. You're not backing your claim.
Back to Paula.
Well, okay. Go ahead, Paula.
Well, yeah, the thing is that as far as the plurality of God in the Old Testament, we don't rely on whether the noun is singular or plural, because even with Elohim, it'll use a singular noun. Elohim said, "Let us make," but then Elohim will say, use singular my. So yeah, you can't. I wouldn't use that as a plank in the argument for plurality.
Okay.
What I would use is statements like "the Lord said to my Lord," and look at those two names for Lord, and then we got Yahweh, we got Adonai, and they're basically interchangeable. All the names of God are pretty much interchangeable, because for any name, I can find an instance where sometimes it seems to be the top, whatever you want to think of, God, and other times this other entity, and they're speaking to each other. So
which flattered the Egypt. I also have to back up, right? Like, having spent a lot of time in Bible scholarship, Paula is indeed correct, right? The fact that it can be used as an honorific plural does not mean that's the only way that it occurs in the Old Testament, and definitely is not the only way it occurs in the Old Testament. Like, it is used as an honorific plural at times, but it is used in the singular, right? It's really not an argument to say that, like, they only believe in one God, or only Moses conceived of one God in that sense. Because just because that's the way language is used, that's not exactly what the doctrinal reflection is.
Thank you, RC. There was also another assertion that was left on the table, though, which was to say that there was specific passages that would challenge the plurality. How do you say that word? Of
plurality.
Plurality. I can't remember if it was Eric or Egypt that threw that out. No one's going to take credit for it. I definitely heard it.
It wasn't.
I have the point.
It was Jesus basically denying he's God. I think. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, this is Jesus being God. That's what's on the table here.
Okay.
Okay.
No. Yeah, but if it was you that threw it out, I can't make your claim for you. I don't know what you mean. I'm really sorry, but I can clarify. If it was you that threw it out there, if you can expand on it, that's what I was hoping for. I'm being vague because I can't remember who threw it out there. If it was you, then yeah, you said that there's text that specifically challenged that idea of it being plural. plural, whatever that word is.
Easy for you to say. But I have another
point.
On,
hold on. Before you make
quick.
any new points, is there anything to actually back that assertion that there's passages that challenge that? Looking at you, Egypt.
Well, I didn't make that claim, though.
Oh, my bad. It must have been someone else.
I was just saying, I was using it in the sense of language. I wasn't referencing any verses.
No, we covered that. It's not you then. Someone else threw it out, and I can't remember who. We'll have to relinquish it. Sorry, Paula.
Yeah, no problem. I got another link on the deity of Christ on every bit about the Trinity, if anybody wants it. But just real quick, one is in the Old Testament. It says Zechariah 12:10 says, "I will pour out on the house of David and inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and supplication. They will look on me, the one they pierced, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only son." So we got that. We got Isaiah 52 and 53, where it talks about absolutely the whole crucifixion before it was even known as a form of punishment, and things that Jesus fulfilled, right? But Isaiah 9:6, it says, "To us a child is born, a son is given, the government shall be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." So those are just some of the Old Testament ones. New Testament, we got Luke 2:11, where Jesus is called Messiah and the Lord. He's also in many passages called the Savior, and yet the Old Testament says God is the only Savior. So if Jesus is also the Savior, then Jesus is God. But probably, I'm really skipping over a bunch, but probably the best proof of that is the fact of covenants, where God made a covenant with Israel, with Moses and angels in attendance, and this was a bilateral conditional covenant, right? And he said then later that I'm going to make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. And then in Hebrews it explains that when someone makes a last will and testament, it can only come into effect when that person dies, right? So if God made a covenant, then God would have to be the one to die to make the new one. Jesus died to enact a new covenant. He said at the Last Supper, "This is my blood of the new covenant." And so since Jesus died and enacted a new covenant, and the old one was made by God, then Jesus must be God because God had to die. So, and that's, like I said, in Hebrews 9, somewhere around there. So, and the charge that got Jesus crucified in the first place was blasphemy, because his enemies said, "You, a mere man, claim to be God." And nobody contested that claim. Jesus didn't say, "No, I never said I was God."
Yeah,
he
he said
never
to
denied
that.
and accepted worship. That's right.
He said to that we're all gods. He said we're all gods after that.
Yeah, he was
You're
referencing
taking one
to
scripture
Psalm.
out of context.
Yeah.
Okay, just for my audience's benefit.
Yeah, as far as
sorry, Paula. I'll start with you if it isn't already obvious. But can you just let my audience know where you stand in this regard? What your position is? Would you call yourself a Christian? I'll ask a couple of other key players if it might not be obvious to my audience already. Start with you, Paula, if it's not already obvious.
Okay, just what basically my perspective. Okay, but yeah, I believe that Jesus rose from the dead. So, and I trust him to reconcile me to God and be adopted as his child, and that's the basic of Christianity. That's the one thing you must believe if you want to be called a Christian by the Bible's standards. Now, there are a lot of people who claim the name without that, but I go by the Bible is my highest authority as far as written commands and instructions and truths, right? So I'm leaning on the Bible. I take the literal, historical, grammatical interpretation method or hermeneutic. But basically, without Jesus rising from the dead, none of that matters. So the reason I study the Bible is because the eyewitness testimonies in it are reliable and prophecies have come true. That, I think, is the what I would call the fingerprint of God on the Bible, is the 100% accuracy of the prophecies over many thousands of years. So that's where I'm coming from. And, and I have studied the Bible for almost 50 years. So that's where I'm at.
Perfect.
I don't know if you need more than that.
Thank you very much for summarising. You don't have to, and I'll say the same to the next person I ask. You don't have to summarise your position in this regard, but I think it'd be useful for my audience just because you're in contention in this regard. Flat Earth Egypt. What's your position in this regard? If you don't mind me asking, you can say I don't want to say. If you don't want to say.
No, it's all right. I'm Muslim, so I believe Jesus is a messenger of God, but he's not God.
Okay.
I believe in Jesus, though.
Anything else? If not, I'll move on to Eric. I want to ask the same question of him. Yes. Again, you don't have to answer.
I was just going to say that in John 10, in the passage where Jesus was about to be stoned, he did actually deny divinity, because he said, "For what good works do you stone me?" And then they say, "For blasphemy." And then he says, "Ye are gods. Isn't it written in your scripture that ye are gods?" Right? And then he goes on to say, "Why then do you accuse me of blasphemy when I merely said I am God's son?" Right? So there he's not like God's son. There are many sons of God in the Bible, right? The term is not explicitly used for divinity.
Okay, we will definitely come back to that, but I just want to establish RC, Meisty, and Eric to go on with. Again, you don't have to say if you don't want to.
That's got to get an answer.
Eric.
I agree with what Flat Earth Egypt said. I don't know if you can call me Christian, but I whatever the Bible says, that I want to follow it. I was raised Catholic, but no, the Trinity doesn't make any sense. Like, who is he praying to? He's praying to himself. He prays to God. So I just, whatever I can read and understand, and I don't need some other person to tell me that here's here, read here, and connect all these dots. No, I just read it, and what it says is what is probably correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Last but by no means least, it's just my audience's benefit, so don't have to say if you don't want to, RC Meisty. What's your position?
He's gone.
Oh, is he gone? Oh, anybody know?
He's a
RC
Mormon
Meisty?
anyway.
Is RC
I
Meisty?
have a
I'm
contradiction to point out.
I was going to
when I
ask
have a
Brian
chance,
as well,
Nathan.
actually. I was going to ask you too, because I don't think you made it clear.
Well, a contradiction I would point out is it's been said, and I know Neil has said it, and I've heard Tent Man say it, so I'm not pointing it directly at them, I'm just pointing out a contradiction, is that Jesus, it's written that Jesus was God in the Bible, or that they believe that Jesus was God, right? They can clarify that point themselves to the audience. But Jesus is also quoted, as I've said, I just want to say, before we go on to this next part, that Jesus didn't write that. It was written about him. That he said, if it's written that Jesus said he was God, then he didn't write it, someone else wrote it. And we all know how easy it is to be misrepresented. So the contradiction I'm pointing out is it's also supposedly said that Jesus said that no one goes to the Father but until they come through me, or something. And that's not verbatim, it's not correct, but it's basically he refers to the Father or to God and not him as God, if you know what I mean. So that's a contradiction. If Jesus ever refers to an entity outside of him, a greater entity of power outside of him at all, then he's not referring to himself as that entity, if you understand what I mean. So that would be, if I was to use contradiction, use what I've heard about the Bible, that would be what I would use as an argument. Thanks, Nathan.
I have a perspective on this.
Want the answer from Paul. Go ahead, I guess.
Thanks for the links, by the way.
I think a lot of the confusion comes in like identifying aspects of God, and then it's like, are you your mind, are you your spirit, or are you your physical body, or are you all three? You know, there's confusion in that.
Did you want to add something, Paula? Thank you for the links, by the way.
Yeah, I was just going to say I finally found where the thing is to do that. So those are there. And then as far as the passage in John 10 about, let me just read the whole section so we get more of the context. Starting in verse 31, his Jewish opponents picked up stones to stone him, but Jesus said, I've shown you many good works. Why are you stoning me? And they said, not for good works, but for blasphemy, because you, a mere man, claim to be God. And Jesus answered them, is it not written in your law, I've said you are gods? If he called them gods to whom the word of God came, the scripture cannot be set aside. What about the one whom the Father set apart as his very own and sent into the world? Why do you accuse me of blasphemy? What's going on here is Jesus is actually using a legal loophole on them because they're about to stone him for blasphemy. And he said, hey, legally, you can't do that because I can find a verse that says we're all gods and you can't stone me for making this claim. So first of all, nobody's denying that he made the claim. Otherwise, this wouldn't even be a conversation. And second of all, that verse that he quoted in the Psalms, I think it is, let's see, Psalm 82:6, the whole passage there, if you read that context, which Jesus wouldn't take it out of context, is about rulers who stood in the place of God. They were often called that in the time and culture. And so in that passage, if you read it, it's about people who were supposedly representing God to the people who were doing a really bad job of it. He said, you will die like men. So he's obviously not saying that all human beings are called gods. Not at all. That would be a very bad interpretation. And this brings out the next point, which is you can't just surface skim. That isn't study. If you want words to jump off the page at you, that's lazy. You really do have to dig for a lot of concepts. And this is why there's disagreement. And the Hebrews had disagreements over it long before there was a Christianity, so that they would have arguments such as, for example, the no-fault divorce argument that Jesus was being asked, that people don't know if they don't dig, because there were two rabbis fighting over whether the law of Moses said that all a man had to do was write his wife a certificate of divorce and send her away, and the other, because any cause was vague in their idea. It was ambiguous, and they said, well, why is it say this instead of making it clear that it's only for that cause? Or they wanted to split it and to say, or for any cause, and they wanted Jesus to take sides. So his answer has been misinterpreted for a long time because they didn't look for this debate that was going on. And that's the sort of thing that isn't going to jump off the page at you, just like the plurality of God, the two powers idea, which again, Christianity did not make up. This is something they saw by studying the scriptures, and the rabbis spent their lives studying it. They were very, very, very well studied. And so anyone who just surface skims would be laughed out of town. And so when people say we have to read the Bible this way and just take the words off the page, and I don't see Trinity or rapture or any of that stuff, that to me is just lazy and ignorant. So
You tell them.
Yeah,
You tell
have
them.
to study to get things.
I totally agree. This is why we love you, Paula.
Hold
You
on.
gave me
Can Paula
goosebumps.
deal with Brian? Can you
Hold
deal
on.
with Brian?
Let me just commend Paula. So while you were reading it out, you could hear the context just from you reading it. Now, I don't know if it's inflections or intonations in your voice, but before you paraphrased the legal implications that are being displayed by his words, they did come off the text just by your reading of it. Now, I'm not saying that would happen if anybody read it. I'm pretty sure it's down to inflections and intonations, as I am implying. Still gave me goosebumps, though, because you made your point beautifully, and you're perfectly within your rights to tell people off for being lazy, because you're not. That's why you're here, then. That's why we love you.
Oh, thank you.
Can you deal
but that
with
sounds like
Brian's
it was
one, not a
directed toward me.
contradiction?
Oh, hold on. It's being challenged. Go ahead, Eric.
That sounds like it was being directed toward me. I understand the esoteric parts of the Bible too. I know about gematria. If you don't know about gematria, you don't know much about the Bible. That's a deep understanding of the Bible. There's like 7 different seals to reading the Bible, but still, it's up to you. You don't need someone to. The kingdom of God is within. You don't need someone else to tell you what it is.
I don't know if it was directed.
That's refuted directly by the Bible. When the Ethiopian eunuch was sitting there reading the scriptures, and he asked John walked up to him in the spirit, and he said, "What are you reading?" And he said, I don't know, and how can I know unless someone shows me?
Right. Just real quick, as for gematria,
Well, maybe
or
you couldn't
gematria, the thing with that is, unless you have the original manuscripts, the autographs, any code you make is based upon a later copy. So I really question that the whole basis of, why there must be some kind of code, and if you don't know the code, then you're ignorant. I totally reject that line of reasoning. As for the kingdom is within you, it never says that. It's in your midst. It means it's right here in front of you. Jesus came, he said, to offer the kingdom to Israel. And so they were looking for someone riding in on a white steed with a sword and an army and throw out Rome. That's what they're looking for. And he's saying, that's not how this is going to work. And so he's not saying the kingdom of God is inside of you esoterically in your soul. He's saying it's right here in front of you, because obviously the Pharisees to whom he was speaking when he said that didn't have any kind of good relationship with God. So it couldn't mean that in the context.
The word's midst, not mist, in case anybody mishears what's being said.
Sorry.
Can we have?
Can you deal
Paula?
with Brian's now?
Oh, right.
Yeah, let me set it up, if I may. So Brian is saying, who is Jesus praying to? And the Trinity. Christianity is monotheistic, not polytheistic. Go on, Paula.
I never mentioned any Trinity. Just let you know.
Didn't you say that? Who was he talking to? The Father?
No, it was somebody else. That was somebody else.
Sorry.
All right. Well, sorry, Brian. I may have said it about somebody else. But go on, Paul.
There was some really loud noise. Sorry, I had to tune out for a second. Can you define the question again? Because I got distracted by loud noises.
Somebody said, "Who is Jesus praying to?"
Okay.
Yeah, it was Brian.
No,
Yeah,
that's not what I said.
It doesn't matter at this moment, Neil.
Well,
Go
it
on,
does.
Paul. Because
Everyone stop.
Christianity is
Right, let's take some
monotheistic.
charge. Hold on. Brian, can you just phrase the question instead of us arguing about what you may or may not have said? Just rephrase the question again, if you mind.
Oh wait, I was just pointing out a contradiction where people who are obviously believers in the Bible will state that that Jesus is God or was God, but yet he also, like, my point was that was written. He didn't write that. Someone else wrote that about him. And what's also written is something along the lines of, nobody goes to the Father or to God, but comes through me, kind of thing. So they must go through him to get to his Father, or get to the Father, or get to God. So the point is that if he ever refers to a greater entity than himself, then he's not referring to himself as that entity. So that's a contradiction if you believe that he is that entity, as opposed to a representation of that entity, or representative of that entity. That's the contradiction of his pointing out.
Perfect. Thank you for the concise repetition. Did you want to address that, Paula?
Okay, yeah. First of all, again, the section we just went over before in John 10, where he never objected to anyone calling him God or saying that he was God, and they were clearly saying, that's what you're saying. And then we had Thomas after the resurrection saying, my Lord and my God. Nobody rebuked him. John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So it's a both and, it's not an either or. And then Philippians 2:5-11, it says, in your relationship with another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. So he was God. He set it aside and then took on, added to his divine nature, human nature. So he is both and his point in being incarnated, which is to take on a physical form, born as a baby, he got his human nature from his mother Mary, right? He got his physical body from her, because the Bible can't be broken. It says that he shared in our humanity and was seen in the likeness of sinful flesh. And so he had to be both, and his purpose was to show us by example what the ultimate God-human relationship was like. So when he prays to the Father, he's praying as a human, which he was, but he was also God. And at one point he said, I will raise myself, I will raise this temple in 3 days. And there's another part that says God would raise it. So they're being equated if you look at all these passages. And again, back to Hebrews 9 with the death of the testator. If the person who made the will was God, using the word person loosely, the entity that made the first contract was God. The one who said, I will make a new contract was God. And the one who died to enact it was Jesus. Therefore, Jesus is God. It's an airtight syllogism. So when you say these things are contradictions, what you're doing is ignoring the context of each and the fact that Jesus had taken on human nature at a point in time. He was eternally God. This is all over the Gospel of John. And he took on, added to his nature, human nature, at a point in time. So it's a both and, is what I'm saying.
Perfect. With that, I am going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, or joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
lovely day.